This is Adam Graham from Pretty Much the Present, bringing you a week of old-time radio podcasts. These episodes were originally released back in 2011, and we're releasing them here pretty much as is, with only some extraneous bits such as the opening from all of the episodes after the first episode removed. Because these are old, it should be noted that any offers or promotions mentioned in the episode may not be valid unless they're currently mentioned on the Great Detectives website. Here now is a week of old-time radio detective podcast. Welcome to the Great Detectives of Old Time Radio. From Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham. If you've got a comment, please email it to me. box13@greatdetectives.net. Be sure to cast your vote for the show on Podcast Alley, podcastalley.greatdetectives.net, and become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/radiodetectives. Well, today is the day we'll bring you the last adventure of the Abbotts. And I should note that the following year, Mandel Kramer, who has taken over the role of Pat Abbott for these last 5 weeks, would actually come back to radio during the 1956 season with a show that has been labeled basically a knockoff of the Abbotts. It's called It's a Crime, Mr. Collins. I've not listened to the program too much. We may end up playing it. I just have enjoyed the Abbotts so much that I don't want to listen to It's a Crime, Mr. Collins too close to when we're playing the Abbotts so that I don't make an unfair comparison. Well, this has, again, been a tremendous series, and we're going to get into this episode in just a second. Before we do, I'd like to encourage you, if you've not already, pick up a copy of my book, Tales of the Dim Night. It is a great superhero comedy with a lot of homages paid to the great superheroes of years past. If you're a fan, you'll recognize quite a bit. Plus, it's also got a great family story. It's available in paperback or as an ebook. Go to dimnight.com. Well, we're going to get into today's episode of The Abbotts, The Murder of a Fabulous Redhead.
After all, suppose you were arrested on suspicion of murder and your husband was out chasing a beautiful redhead with $100,000. You think you've got troubles, hmm?
The National Broadcasting Company presents The Adventures of the Abbotts, starring Claudia Morgan and Mandel Kramer as Pat and Jean Abbott, those popular characters of detective fiction created by Francis Crane. NBC invites you to join Pat and Jean for another exciting recorded adventure in romance and crime. Now here is Jean Abbott to set the stage for tonight's puzzle in murder.
Pat and I were having our breakfast coffee. We do kind of a switch on the husband and wife routine at breakfast. Pat's hungry. He gobbles up pancakes and sausages and concentrates on his eating. Me, well, I bury my nose in the morning paper. Pat's business as a private detective keeps him so busy he doesn't have too much time for the news. So, well, I'm the poor man's John Cameron Swayze. I tell Pat what's new.
Well, go ahead, pal. Let's hear it.
Your insurance all paid up, Pat?
Why?
Your days are numbered. They're knocking off private detectives in this town like pins in a bowling alley.
Oh, who'd they get this time?
Well, the paper says your friend Charlie Brooks was shot last night in his office.
Well, that isn't surprising. Anyway, Mr. Brooks was no friend of mine, darling. I warned him. He was getting into some very crooked deals.
He was looking for a woman named Paula Sterling, it says.
Probably found her. Only somebody didn't like it, so they shot him.
Who's Paula Sterling?
I passed.
I thought maybe she was somebody in the gossip columns of those silly magazines.
And you should know, dear, you read them.
Out of morbid curiosity, that's all. Anyway, you'd better let this be a lesson to you. Take me along on all your murder cases, and I'll keep you out of trouble.
Yes, you're very helpful.
Your wife isn't a good detective.
Terrible.
She good for anything at all?
I doubt it.
How about this?
Yes. Now that you mention it, she does have talent along certain lines.
While Pat and I were at breakfast, a man we'd never heard of, a Mr. Sharbert, was talking to a hood who worked for him, a hood named Julian. They were in Sharbert's very expensive and lavishly decorated apartment.
I'm telling you the truth, Sharbert. Now, when I got there, this private eye, Charlie Brooks, he was dead.
Julian, doesn't it strike you as odd?
Doesn't what?
I hired Brooks to find Paula Sterling. He was going to tell me last night where he'd found her. Then he was murdered about the time you got there.
You think I saw the killer?
I don't know, my dear Julian. I'm merely speculating.
I didn't have nothing to do with it.
I'm still looking for Paula Sterling, Julian.
Well, how am I going to find her, Mr. Sharbert?
The private detective did. You're as bright as he is.
Yeah, but he got 2 bullets in him for finding her.
Yes, Julian. And somebody might get bullets in them for not finding her.
Me, for instance, Mr. Sharbert?
You, for instance, my dear Julian.
I walked Pat over to his office in one of San Francisco's newest skyscrapers. Figured I'd kibitz on a case or two. Pat hates it. But me? I worry about him. I also worry about the women that parade into his place. The one we found in his waiting room, for example.
I'm Dorothy Strickland, Mr. Abbott.
Oh? Well, do sit down. This is my wife, Jean.
Oh, how do you do?
Miss Strickland?
Not here in the anteroom. My private office, Miss Strickland.
Well, thank you.
Wait here, Jean. Jean? Come back, dear. I said wait here.
Oh, did you?
Mm-hmm. Now, you see, perhaps Miss Strickland wants to talk to me confidentially.
Well, that's what I thought.
Read some magazines out here, chum. Newspapers, whatever you like.
Okay. Oh, say, here's something. Pershing says he has the Kaiser on the run. Where do you get these magazines? From your dentist?
Now, what's on your mind, Miss Strickland?
I want you to find my sister-in-law.
Why?
So my brother can sue her for divorce.
I'm very sorry, but I don't get mixed up in divorces.
But she may have been murdered.
Really? What makes you think so?
She's been missing for 6 months.
Well, that doesn't mean she was killed, unless you have some special knowledge.
Don't start accusing me. I don't like innuendos like that.
I'm just trying to get the story straight. What's your sister-in-law's name?
Paula Sterling.
Oh. Her again.
Paula Sterling's her maiden name. She's originally from Los Angeles. Why did you say her again?
Her name was in the morning paper.
Yes. Very unfortunate. That private detective.
The fact that he was killed looking for her is hardly tempting.
Well, hear me out first.
The divorce her fault?
No. My brother Stuart is young, and, well, he's fallen in love with someone else.
Mm-hmm. Tell me, could Paula have disappeared so your brother can't find her and serve her? Is she blocking the divorce that way?
Absolutely not. That's why I know something must have happened to her.
Anybody else mixed up in her life? Another man, maybe?
None that I know of.
Is she psychologically sound? No possibility of amnesia?
That's out of the question.
Do you have any idea why the first detective hired on the case was murdered?
None. Are you frightened? Is that why you won't look for Paula?
I don't scare quite that easily, Miss Strickland, but I do like to know who's holding what cards.
You've got to take the case. I need your help terribly. Isn't there anything that will persuade you?
Perhaps.
I think I'd know a way, except there's an obstacle.
Oh? What way is that?
Well, let's say the obstacle's in the anteroom.
My what?
Well, sometimes it's easier to win a man to your own way of thinking if there isn't a wife in the picture.
Oh, well, skip that. Married or not, I still have a peculiar feeling I don't like risking my neck unless I have to. Now, tell me, what does Paula look like?
Well, she's 5'3". She weighs 115 pounds, has beautiful red hair, lovely big blue eyes. They say she looks a little like me.
Oh, lovely eyes, beautiful hair, looks like you. You're the modest type, I see.
No, just telling you the facts. That's what you wanted, isn't it?
Speaking of facts, Miss Strickland, let's face a very interesting one. The fee.
Hope it won't be exorbitant.
Well, you know, stuntmen get a lot of money. That's because their assignments might be fatal. Now, you were asking me to walk the same road that a colleague of mine just walked, and, he's in the morgue.
All right, name your figure.
5,000. Find her or not.
Well, would that settle it? Then you'd accept?
Probably.
I'll dig up the money somehow, some way. The deal, 5,000. Of course, if it could be less, I mean, even a little less.
You're asking me to find a woman nobody's been able to locate in 6 months. She's very attractive. In spite of what you say, she's undoubtedly involved with men, and some of them are obviously hoods. They just knocked off the guy who finally did find her. And you've no really valuable clues. There'll be nothing less, Miss Strickland.
All right, I'll pay.
All right, then you're on.
Will you start immediately?
Immediately.
You're a darling.
Hmm?
I could just kiss you.
Well...
Was I interrupting something?
No, I, just that, Jean, dear, you see, she got excited because I consented to take the case. Do you have a pencil, darling? I want to take down Miss Strickland's number.
I think you've already got her number.
Look, I came here to hire services, Mrs. Abbott, not to indulge in second-rate wisecracks.
You also didn't come here to kiss my husband. Or did you?
Here, I'll write my number on this pad. There we are.
All right, I'll call you the moment I learn anything, Dorothy.
Learn anything? Brother, if I hadn't come in, you'd have graduated with honors in about 5 minutes.
I was talking about the case.
Well, I wasn't. Now, isn't that odd?
I'm very grateful, Mr. Abbott, and goodbye, Mrs. Abbott.
Goodbye, Miss Strickland.
That's a sweet girl.
Husband snatcher.
Darling, you don't know what this involves.
I certainly do. I listened on the intercom.
1 million people in San Francisco, and I have to find one redhead. You know, that's like looking for a cheap apartment.
I have a feeling I can clean up this case with one call.
And I have a feeling that you've flipped.
Just listen.
Hello?
May I please speak to Paula Sterling?
Well, this is Paula Sterling.
Well, this is the office of Pat Abbott. Are you from Los Angeles?
Well, yes.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Well, hello? Hello?
Well, my fine, high-class private detective with the big problems. What have you got to say now?
Well, that couldn't possibly be the same Paula Sterling. Dorothy's been looking for her for almost 6 months.
Or maybe she wasn't trying very hard. She's living at the Beverly Arms.
Well, how did you know?
Elementary, my dear Abbott. I looked it up in the phone book. Well, Pat, what does the nameplate say?
It says Paula Sterling, all right, but it can't be the same one.
What's the matter?
Not locked.
Nobody home?
Let's try the bedroom.
Pat.
Yeah. Looks like somebody hit this place like a hurricane.
What could have they been looking for?
Same thing we are. Paula Sterling.
Well, they couldn't have expected to find her in any of these drawers. If you ask me, this was a conventional robbery.
Well, darling, you talked to her just 15 minutes ago.
So what?
Well, if this were a conventional robbery, then the burglar might still be... What happened to those lights?
I don't know.
Turn them on.
They won't work.
Fuse must have gone. Don't move.
That's good advice. Why don't you take it, too?
Get that flashlight out of my eyes.
Well, Pat Abbott, the detective, right?
Have we met?
Not formal, no. I saw you in a courtroom once. Oh, you did real good. But you won't this time. Not with this dame.
Which dame?
Paula Sterling, the dame with you.
I am not a dame. I'm Mrs. Pat Abbott.
That must be fun.
I could have more fun, pal, pushing your wise guy face.
Never mind that. It'd get us all in a jam.
I didn't hear your name.
Call me Julian.
All right, Julian. We're looking for Paula Sterling, too.
My boss would like to know that.
Who's your boss?
Mr. Sharvett. He's a very nice guy. You know, you ought to meet him. In fact, you ought to meet him right now.
Maybe I don't want to.
Maybe you don't see this 38.
All right, we'll meet him. I love cordial invitations like that.
All right, folks. Step inside.
Just quit shoving, Julian.
Hello, Mr. Sharvett.
And precisely what is this uproar about?
Oh, it's just what the doctor ordered. Meet Paula Sterling, Mr. Sharvett.
Paula Sterling.
You don't recognize her?
My dear Julian, I told you Paula was a redhead. This lovely girl is not.
Oh, hear that, Pat? This lovely girl.
Well, I found both of them in Paula Sterling's apartment.
I'm extremely sorry. I didn't quite catch your name.
My name is Abbott. Pat Abbott.
The renowned detective? I am impressed. What were you doing in Paula's apartment?
Just looking.
For what?
I heard there was a vacancy.
I wonder if we have time for these little ventures into irrelevant humor.
Okay, we'll leave.
What is your interest in Paula Sterling?
A client of mine wants to locate him.
Perhaps we can join forces. I'm looking forward, too.
Thank you, no.
You're uncooperative, aren't you, Mr. Abbott?
Give me a crack at him, boss. He'll cooperate.
Would you like Julian to go to work on you?
Sure, if he'll put down that gun.
Where is Paula, Mr. Abbott? Julian, I don't approve of violence.
Pat, are you all right, dear?
Of course he is. Help him up, Julian.
Never mind. Just put the gun down, pal. I'd like a crack at you myself.
Did Julian change your mind, Abbott?
I'll change his face for him.
Oh, Pat.
Julian, Mr. Abbott will be of little use to me unconscious or dead. Unless I decide he hasn't the information I want.
He's got it. And I'll get it out of him.
Mr. Abbott, I'm not doing this for amusement. Paula Sterling worked for me until she disappeared with $100,000 of mine. I want it back.
Want me to answer?
Never mind. Hello? Yes? Yes. You have? Oh, that's splendid. Accept my apologies, Mr. Abbott.
What for?
An error. It's been rectified. One of my employees phoned in. Imagine. He just found Paula Sterling.
Pat, you haven't said a word since we left Sharvett.
I've been thinking, darling.
Well, it's about time, the way you were being pushed around.
I want to see Dorothy Strickland.
Business or pleasure?
You got the key to the office?
Here.
I'll turn on the lights.
Pat, look. Near your desk.
Stay where you are, Jean. I'll take a look.
Well, if she's asleep, don't disturb her.
I couldn't possibly disturb her. She's dead.
Oh, no.
We finally found Paula Sterling.
Why was she killed here?
Remember when you spoke to her on the phone?
Uh-huh.
You said this is Pat Abbott's office. Well, she must have come down here to find out what was going on, and Sharpett's hoods were waiting for her.
You're a bad guesser, Abbott. I'd like to be your bookmaker.
You know, this is the second time you've snuck up on me, Julian. I'm getting annoyed. And get that gun out of my face.
I've been tailing you ever since you left Sharpett's place. That phone call was a phony. Sharpett figured when you heard we found Paula Sterling, you'd go where she was hiding out to check.
Well, he's a bad guesser, too.
Why'd you knock her off?
Don't be an idiot. I just got here. You know that.
Yeah, but how long does it take to knock a dame off and roll her for a dough?
Give me the phone.
Who you calling?
The cops.
Forget it. It's a crummy idea.
Oh, you've got a better one?
Yeah. I got a better one.
Take it easy, Pat.
Darling, where's Julian?
Gone. Coming back with Charlotte.
You know, I'd like to get Julian sometime when he isn't armed.
Well, don't try to get up. I already called the police.
I didn't want to take a chance disarming him. Kind of you. Wild shot, you know. Honey, why don't you go to the movies?
I'd rather be with you.
Do you have any shopping to do?
I'd rather be with you.
Jean, you're lousing up the case.
You're wrecking our marriage, Pat.
Okay, but I'm not responsible. Come along with me.
The phony. Pat, I mean. He sneaked to a phone booth and got his pals over at police headquarters and had them pick me up. They took me to headquarters. Invited me to play gin. Oh, I was furious. I threatened to sue for false arrest. Well, they said I was a witness. That was true, and I had no comeback. But I vowed then and there to fix Pat's wagon if it was the last thing I did. I don't mean his station wagon. While I was fuming and fussing in custody, Julian was calling his boss.
Is that you, Mr. Sharp?
Yes, Julian.
Listen, wait till you hear this. Now, it's the screwiest thing. Who do you think killed Paula Sterling?
She's dead?
The cops just picked up Pat Abbott's wife.
Now, that is odd.
You better kiss your $100,000 goodbye. Gone with the wind, pal.
Perhaps you're right. Come by and see me, Julian.
What for?
I'll pay you off.
You didn't have to drive me to the airport, Mr. Sharp.
I'm delighted to do it, Julian. It's the least I could do under the circumstances.
Hey, wait a minute. You made a mistake.
Did I?
Should have taken that left turn.
Oh, how stupid of me.
Why are we stopping here?
Something just occurred to me.
Did it?
Yes. Julian, who stands to gain the most from Paula Sterling's death?
Well, Pat Abbott?
Why do you say that?
Well, he could knock her off. Grab the dough.
Incredible. Abbott is a world-famous detective. He's turned down more money than that. Extremely ethical.
Maybe his wife swung it, huh?
Don't be absurd.
Who does that leave?
You, my dear Julian.
Me? What are you getting at?
Suppose you committed the murder. You wouldn't have to split the take with anyone.
Oh, come on.
You have the money with you, Julian? Or shall we drive somewhere and pick it up?
Put that gun away.
Let go, I tell you. Let go. Price of stupidity, my dear Julian. To live by violence is to die that way.
Well, I'll be darned. Pat Abbott.
Hello, Dorothy. Can I come in?
Can you? Step right in. Tell me, why are all the attractive men married?
Skip it. We've business.
Where's your wife?
Didn't you hear me?
Yeah, tell me where she is.
At police headquarters. I couldn't afford to let her go wandering around town on this case. Too many trigger-happy people in it.
Trigger happy? Who?
Your sister-in-law worked for a man named Victor Sharp.
Have you found her?
Yes.
Where is she?
My office.
I'll get my coat. I'll be with you in a minute.
Wait a second. I have bad news for you.
I mean, she's ashamed to see me. That's it, huh? That's all right.
It isn't that.
What are you trying to tell me?
She's dead.
Oh, no. Oh, that's awful.
She wasn't the young innocent, Dorothy. She was mixed up with a rough crowd. She stole $100,000.
But do you realize what you're saying?
Sure.
Yeah, but that doesn't make sense. I mean, Paula was a simple, sweet girl. She didn't need Sharbert's money.
I can't convince him of that.
Well, you're wrong there. There's a mix-up.
Yes, there is a mix-up.
What do you mean?
You said she had beautiful red hair and blue eyes.
Well,
Her hair wasn't naturally red like yours. It was dark at the roots. It was the first thing that struck me when I saw the body, and also she was about 2 inches shorter than you.
well, what difference does that make?
Well, I know you haven't seen her in months, and girls do dye their hair.
Now, wait a minute,
but,
you've lost me. I can't seem to think straight. Now, the shock, I guess. Knowing Paula's dead.
Paula Sterling isn't dead.
But you just...
The girl in my office is dead, all right, but not Paula. You're Paula Sterling.
Oh, no, now, really? If you're trying to be clever...
No, not very clever. Tell me, how do you know she took Sharbert's money? I didn't say it was his, but you did.
I just presumed, since you mentioned his
No,
name...
it was too easy when Jean found your name in the phone book. I should have had the answer then. What surprises me is that Sharbert never thought of looking there.
Sure he did, but it wasn't there when he looked. I waited until today when the new phone listings were published before I walked into your office.
I was very thoughtful. Who is the dead girl in my
My
office?
double, and she did it well, too.
Well, now, if we're all through...
We're not through.
Mhm. You have a license for that gun, Dorothy?
Nope, but it won't bother me. The police will think that Sharbert killed you when they find your body.
You want to make a deal?
Go ahead, talk.
I'll get you a great lawyer. You could plead insanity.
Yeah? On what grounds?
Trying to get away with this. You'd have to be nuts to try it. Now, you better put away that gun. Those things go off sometimes. Did you kill anybody else besides your double? Charlie Brooks, maybe?
Uh-huh, Charlie Brooks. He got wise. He stumbled on the truth. He wouldn't listen to me, and he acted like a Boy Scout the way you're acting. And he ended up dead, the way you will.
Maybe not.
Oh, you want part of the $100,000, huh?
Maybe.
How much?
Half.
Huh, for what?
Keeping my mouth shut. You know, the heat to get whoever kills me will be terrific. Now, that's playing it your way. Now, think of mine. I say nothing, pin a rap on Sharbert, get him out of the way, and we're both clear. They'll never find out who got
Now, wait a
Brooks.
minute. You talk too fast. I gotta think.
Just think of being in the clear. Now, think.
Don't get so close to me.
I don't want the gun.
You're not made of ice water, after all.
Who could be? Ever look in a mirror?
I thought you came here on business.
Well, I did.
Oh, my arm! Let go! Pat, are you all right?
Yes, Jean. Get up, Dorothy. Police downstairs, darling?
Yes, prowl car. I talked him into coming here. I had a notion you'd make yourself a target.
Dirty
Out the
low
door, Dorothy.
down. You didn't want
Let's
to
go
heal.
see those boys.
You never did. I bid for an old stall.
Oh, that's nothing. We all do that. Darling, I told you you'd come within inches of a bullet. That shot she fired. Lucky it was wild.
Not as wild as I am, dear. Locking me up in the hoosegow. Chasing redheads. Kissing this woman.
Line of duty, pal.
Oh!
Ow! Hey, what's the idea of kicking a guy in the pants if he just captured a killer?
Well, I'm your wife, right? Line of duty, pal. Line of duty. Paula killed the girl in your office, Pat, right? But now, how did that help her?
Well, darling, once I told the police that Paula Sterling was dead, Sharbert accepted it and would give up looking for her. He suspected Julian of double-crossing him.
You're guessing.
No, I'm not. They just picked up Sharbert and he confessed.
Well, where's Julian?
The coroner's got him.
So, the reason Dottie came to you was to have you establish that Paula Sterling was dead.
Absolutely right. You see, that left her free to take a powder with Sharbert.
Fine. So now you collect from your client, and the case is closed.
Well, my client was Paula Sterling, alias Dorothy Strickland. I just nailed her for homicide, so I'm afraid she won't pay me a dime.
Oh, that's what I like. A husband who's a good businessman, makes money, protects himself, takes care of his wife and home. Total profits on this venture, $0, 0 cents. Well, Pat, one more wonderful case like this, and we'll be bankrupt.
Darling, you mean you love me for my money alone?
There's something else?
Give me
Oh. Pat,
Yes, darling?
I don't care if you haven't a cent. I don't care if you're a terrible businessman. Nothing matters. Except one thing. Get a deposit on the next case. Cash.
Adventures of the Abbotts has come to you through the worldwide facilities of the United States Armed Forces Radio and Television Service.
Welcome back. Well, Gene has a definite point. He definitely ought to get a deposit, as and a lot of private investigators would do well to follow that practice. When we're talking about radio PIs, as they often end up with either dead clients or who can't pay them, or jailed clients who won't pay them. Well, now we turn to listener comments and feedback. Larry comments on Podcast Alley, keep up the good work. It is obvious you enjoy what you're doing, and it shows in your end product. I'm sure that there are others out there that appreciate the hard work and the time you put into these programs. I'm glad that I found you a couple years ago. Even though I can get these programs elsewhere, I enjoy yours the most. Appreciate your commentary, even though others may not. You have greatly improved over time. Sound quality much better than in the beginning. Again, keep up the work. And Larry from Pahrump, Nevada. Well, thanks, Larry. Glad to know that things are getting better as we go. Well, that'll do it for this week and for the Adventures of the Abbotts. Join us next Monday for William Gargan in Ideal in Crime. And then 3 weeks after that, we'll begin into William Gargan in Barry Craig, Confidential Investigator. Well, I will say our vote concluded for last month, and now I can say safely, as we're recording this on May the 1st, that the winner was Nero Wolfe. Clearly a favorite with the listeners from the Podcast Alley vote. Thanks to everybody who participated. Well, before we do get started, I want to let you know about Audible. Audible brings the world of books to your ears, because oftentimes we are on the go so much we don't have time to read. However, with Audible, it makes it affordable to listen to great books right on your MP3 player. I just finished listening to In the Best Families, a Nero Wolfe mystery, which was actually pretty fascinating because they mixed up, Rex Stout did, a lot of the Nero Wolfe norms. Nero Wolfe disappears and Archie has to move on. Pretty interesting stuff, particularly in the middle chapters there. Of course, there are tens of thousands of other copy of titles available. Whether you're looking for mysteries, modern or classic, or you'd like to take a listen to the latest New York Times bestseller, you've got a world of options on Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/greatdetectives to start your free trial and get a free audiobook. Now let's get into today's episode of Nero Wolfe, The Case of the Lost Heir.
Ladies and gentlemen, the ringing of that phone bell brings you mystery, adventure.
Nero Wolfe's office, Archie Goodwin speaking. Mr. Horace Crail. Crail, does Mr. Crail know Mr. Wolfe? Oh, I see.
What is it, Archie?
A guy named Horace Crail. His secretary says he wants to talk to you.
What about?
I don't know.
Ask.
Mr. Wolf's rather busy right now, but I'll give him a message if you wish. Yes. Yeah. Oh, wait a second, Mr. Wolfe.
What?
Black on red and red on black.
Archie, this is solitaire.
So?
Solitaire is a game that is played by one single person alone. If I wish to put a red card on a red card or a black card on a black card...
You're cheating.
Of course I am cheating. What is the message Mr. Horace Crail, secretary, asked you to convey?
Just that he wants to see you.
In a rather tragic sense, I suppose he does.
Why tragic?
In that he wants to see me. He is blind. Tell him to come here at his own convenience.
Okay. What does Mr. Crail want to see Mr. Wolfe about? A murder? A murder that may still be prevented.
Archie.
Just a second. What?
I have run the cards out perfectly. Is it his own murder Mr. Crail wants us to prevent?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's that renowned genius who is the bulkiest, most ponderous, and most brilliant detective in the world. Yes, none other than that chair-borne mass of unpredictable intellect, Nero Wolfe, created by Rex Stout and brought to you in a new series of adventures over this NBC network in the person of Mr. Sidney Greenstreet.
Once in a long while, Mr. Wolfe and I talk about this affair. When we do, we call it the case of the lost heir. But I don't think the title's quite adequate. For me, it ought to be called the case of the gone goose. And I was the goose.
Well, Archie, do you see any red on red or black on black?
Nope.
So?
So what?
You irritate me, Archie.
Okay, you won your little game of solitaire perfectly, as you say. Now, who is Horace Crail?
A prominent industrialist. If you read the papers, you would know.
Horace Crail. Crail? Oh, yeah, the Crail Company.
Exactly.
How did you know he was blind, if he is?
The papers have carried the story. The headlines read, Blind Father Welcomes Lost Daughter.
Oh, yeah, I remember. A few days ago, there was a picture, too.
I thought you'd remember the girl at least.
Well, if it's the one I remember, I remember.
Archie.
Oh, well, it probably isn't true. By the way, let me tell you what I found out about the facts of life.
The door, Archie.
Mr. Crail is here to see Mr. Wolfe.
Oh, yes, come in.
This is Mr. Crail. I'm his secretary, Hugh Gaines. There's a step here, Mr. Crail.
Of course. Who is this man?
I'm Archie Goodwin, Mr. Wolfe's assistant. Mr. Wolfe's waiting for you.
Where is Mr. Wolfe, Mr. Goodwin?
I led the way. The blind man and his secretary followed. Mr. Horace Crail was tall, thin, white-haired. His face was heavily lined, but the lines were not those of care or worry. He wore very dark glasses through which he might not have been able to see even if he had had his sight. Hugh Gaines, the secretary, was in his late 20s, surprisingly young and surprisingly handsome for the kind of a job he had. I led them into Mr. Wolfe's office, made the introductions, and sat them down.
Well, Mr. Crail, what can I do for you?
As you see, Mr. Wolfe, I'm blind.
Need I say you have my deepest sympathy?
I don't give a hoot for your sympathy, Mr. Wolfe. Oh, thank you, of course. I mention my condition merely because it affects the position in which I find myself.
Go on.
You.
Yes, Mr. Crail?
Tell Mr. Wolfe about my daughter. Oh, incidentally, Mr. Wolfe, I asked my secretary to do this because in this way you will get a first-hand account.
Now, let's see. A few days ago, Tuesday to be exact, at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a young woman walked into the house and said she wanted to see her father. I spoke to her myself. She said her name was Magda Crail. I asked her certain questions.
Why, Mr. Gaines?
He asked her questions because he thought, and I thought, that my daughter died 13 years ago. Oh, either the girl who came back to me is my daughter, or she is an imposter, and she belongs in jail.
Is there any doubt in your mind about it?
Of course. That's why I'm here.
On the telephone, you said something about preventing murder.
Well, I have a stepson named Anthony George to whom I intended to leave my money. Not because I liked him. Simply because I had nobody else to leave it to.
Except your daughter.
Except my daughter. If she is my daughter.
We were talking about murder.
I was talking about my daughter and my stepson.
Same thing, I take it.
Maybe, possibly. I don't know.
Mr. Craig.
Yes?
I am not a wealthy man, but I'm certainly able to make ends meet.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Explain, Archie.
I think Mr. Wolfe means that if you don't want to be frank with him, he'd rather not waste his time.
Mr. Wolfe, I apologize if I've seemed to spar with you.
Fooey.
See, a blind man can only judge by what he hears and smells and feels.
So?
No, I must be a little more cautious than I would have to be otherwise.
I'm sorry, Mr. Craig. Patience is not one of my virtues. Now, about your daughter, or your non-daughter. What's her name?
Magda. She calls herself Magda Creel, which was my daughter's name.
What makes you think she isn't your daughter?
Well, $10 million, partly.
Once again, Mr. Craig?
My estate may be worth more than that, but surely not less. You?
Surely not less, Mr. Krell. Rather more, I should say.
Yes, 10 million might have some appeal to an ambitious girl, eh, Archie?
Sure, but I'm not a girl, and I'm not ambitious.
Nobody could accuse you of either fault. Mr. Craig, we are getting nowhere. Either you tell your story from the beginning or take it somewhere else. Archie, I'd like some beer.
When I went out for the beer, the kitchen was a mess, and incidentally, I saw what was being prepared for lunch. When I got back to the office, Mr. Creel and his boy were gone. One beer for Mr. Wolfe. What happened?
What took you so long, Archie?
I had a sandwich.
And spoiled your lunch.
You know what you're having for lunch?
Of course. I planned it. Baby octopus. Delicious.
I'll take your word for it. What happened to the blind tycoon?
Get your book, will you, Archie? I want to give you a few notes.
Oh, just a second. Okay.
Item. You needn't repeat everything after me.
Yes, master.
Item, Horace Creel was born blind. Item, his wife and their 6-year-old daughter, Magda, disappeared in their private plane 13 years ago. Magda returned last Tuesday. Item, no matter what he says to the contrary, Horace Creel is afraid he's going to be killed. I think Mr. Creel is right.
Memo from Archie Goodwin to Nero Wolfe. Time, 4:32 p.m. The notes you dictated on the Creel case are on your blotter. 3 pages of them. You are with your orchids. I am on my way to the Creel domicile to meet the other characters in this turgid drama. As per instructions, I will bring them here if possible. Love, Archie.
Yes, sir?
My name is Goodwin, Archie Goodwin, I believe I'm expected.
This way, please, sir. Yes, sir?
Thanks.
Hello.
Don't tell me you're Nero Wolfe.
You might buy a couple of £100. I'm Archie Goodwin, his assistant.
Well, I'm Magda Creel. Nobody's assistant. That awful Hugh Gaines creature said Nero Wolfe wants to talk to me.
He does.
Where is he?
Waiting for you. No hurry, though. No hurry at all. Just play and don't worry about a thing. Black hair, green eyes, skin like a magnolia plant. Beautiful, beautiful. While she finished what she was playing, I watched her. Beautiful.
Well?
Beautiful.
Mr. Goodwin.
Archie.
Oh, we could get along together, Archie, if that's the way you are.
It's the way I am. I can't seem to do anything about it.
Where's Anthony?
Anthony? Oh, Anthony George.
Well, I thought both my repulsive half-brother and I were supposed to meet Nero Wolfe.
I'm here in case anybody wants to know.
Over there in the shadows, listening with all his ears. That's Anthony George. Shall we go and talk to Nero Wolfe, Anthony?
Goodwin? You look like a normal sort of person.
Well, that's open to question, but go on.
If you had to choose between $10 million and killing a woman by due process of law, which would you choose?
I'll think about it between now and July 1994. Now, shall we go talk to Nero Wolfe?
Miss Creel,
Yes, Mr. Wolfe.
why did you wait until last Tuesday to let your father know that you were living?
Does it make any difference?
I think so.
13 years ago, I was 6.
What she means is that she was 6 when she died.
But I didn't die, Anthony Sweet.
Obviously. But Magda Creel did. With my mother.
His mother. Anthony says he doesn't remember me as a child. But I remember him, the brat.
What about me?
When I was about 4 or 5, you were 8 or 9, I suppose. Do you remember dressing up in one of Daddy's tailcoats, a sword, and Mother's hat with a plume?
Suppose I did. You're still not my sister.
Don't worry, Anthony. When poor Father dies, I'll support you.
Archie.
Sir?
I made a mistake.
A mistake? You?
I thought I wanted to talk to these young people. I don't. Take them away. Take the young lady to a nightclub.
On my salary?
As part of our investigation, it will be charged to Mr. Horace Creel.
It was no hardship at all. In fact, it was a pleasure. We dropped Anthony George off at the Creel place, and Magda and I went on. And on.
You're a wonderful dancer, Archie.
You can't make enemies that way, honey.
Archie, why did Mr. Wolfe want you to take me out?
To find out whether you really are Creel's daughter.
How did he expect you to find out?
I don't know.
Do you think he knew?
He probably had some idea, but I don't know what it could have been.
Honestly?
Honestly.
Archie, do you think I'm telling the truth?
No. But wait a minute, baby. I don't think you're lying either. I just don't think.
Give me my handbag, Archie. Thanks. I've got something here that might interest both you and Mr. Wolfe. Here. Those are snapshots that were taken of me before I was 6.
Ah. Yeah, cute.
Now look at me.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Can't you see those pictures are of me?
Kids that young all look the same to me, but suppose they are pictures of you. What of it?
Well, just this. I found them in one of Mr. Creel's old photograph albums. My father, I mean.
Oh, here's something.
The one lying on my tummy on the white bearskin rug. All babies get their pictures taken that way. Here, give it to me.
Wait a second. What's this mark under your shoulder blade?
It's a little birthmark, like a strawberry.
Yeah, it's clear. Look, honey.
Why are you so interested in babies, Archie?
Because I always thought I should have been a mother. Now, look, have you still got that mark on your back?
Of course. At least I suppose so. They don't go away, do they? Where are you going?
I'll be right back.
Nero Wolfe speaking.
Archie Goodwin. I'm with Magda Creel.
No doubt.
What?
No doubt, I said. But never mind. What do you want?
Want to ask a question.
Go on.
You don't think Magda's Horace Creel's daughter, do you?
I don't think anything.
You're stealing your lines from me.
Never. All right, then, no. I don't think the girl is Creel's daughter.
That's just what I hoped you'd say.
Why, Archie?
Because for once you're wrong.
She's pretty, isn't she?
Yes, she is. Also, she's got a birthmark.
You have seen it?
No, but nobody's going to be fool enough to claim a birthmark that isn't there. It's too easy to prove.
Good night, Archie.
But you deserted me, Archie. You know Hugh Gaines, don't you?
Hello, Gaines.
Hello, Goodwin. Making hay while the moon shines?
You know, if you work that into a routine, it could be pretty dull.
You don't like me, do you?
Do I have to?
No, not in the least.
Well, that's good. Mr. Wolfe and I feel it's wrong to like any of our clients, especially a nightclub.
Really? Why?
Because they might sit down at your table while you're making a telephone call.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Never mind. Finish your drink.
Once again, I'm sorry.
Forget it. Mr. Creel seems to think that Magda's trying to rook him.
Apparently.
What do you think?
Boys, I'm here too, you know.
Quiet. What do you think, Mr. Gaines?
Well, to me, it's a matter of no importance one way or the other. As for Mr. Creel, what he wants is absolute proof. And, of course, there's no such thing as proof that is absolute. Do you want me to add it up for you?
Yeah, that's exactly what I want you to do for me. Add it up.
13 years ago, Mrs. Creel and her small daughter, Magda, boarded a chartered plane in St. Louis to fly across the Ozarks to Hot Springs, Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
They took off, and that's the last that ever was heard of them, or the pilot, or the plane.
Okay, add some more.
Mr. Creel had the whole area searched for months. The search itself cost almost $50,000.
And the plane was not found.
They finally decided that it must have fallen into the Mississippi, where it would sink to the bottom and stay forever.
Now, wait a minute. Magda.
Yes, Archie.
Don't you remember anything about this trip?
Nothing. Not a single thing. The last I remember is Mother putting me to bed in a strange city, in a hotel. And that's all.
Okay, what's the next thing you remember?
Archie, dear.
Yeah?
Didn't my father go over this whole business with Mr. Wolfe?
I suppose he did.
Then do we have to do it again?
There must be some reason why he wanted me to take you to a nightclub.
Because I might say something I haven't already said 100 times?
Maybe. What's the next thing you remember after your mother put you to bed in a strange city?
Archie, I have a confession to make.
This I believe. Go ahead.
$10 million is a lot of money.
So I've been told.
I don't really remember a single solitary thing before I was 6 years old and going to school in Rogers, Arkansas.
Not Anthony George wearing tails and a sword?
It was one of the pictures in the album.
Not your mother putting you to bed in a hotel in St. Louis?
$10 million, Archie.
So you're not Magda Crale?
Well, of course I'm Magda Crale. Oh, I may have tried to make the story sound a little more convincing than I should have. But I'm Magda Crale just the same. How could I be anybody else?
So far, I can't see why you shouldn't be anybody else.
Miss Crale will now bring up the matter of the diary. Won't you, Miss Crale?
The diary?
Oh, you don't know. Then Mr. Wolfe has told you nothing at all about this case, has he?
He probably told me all I needed to know. What about a diary?
Well, you see, Mr. Goodwin, Miss Crale's memory begins at about the happy age of 7. A black-haired, green-eyed, pigtail brat named Maggie Lomax. Only child of Walt and Mabel Lomax of Rogers, Arkansas. Am I correct, Miss Lomax? Miss Crale, I mean.
He's a sarcastic character, isn't he, Archie?
That he is. What about this diary?
To cut a long sob story short, Walt and Mabel Lomax died in an automobile accident a few weeks ago, leaving only Maggie. Take it from there, Maggie.
There was no money. I looked through the house to find anything I could sell, and I came across a hidden box. The diary was in the box, along with some clothes that might fit a 6-year-old girl.
The clothes look like what the girl was last seen wearing.
How do you know?
Well, there's a photograph in one of Mr. Crale's albums taken in St. Louis the day before the flight. But for $10 million, those clothes could be reproduced, stitch for stitch.
Archie, dear.
Take him out in the alley? It would be a pleasure.
Oh, now, wait a second, Archie. With one arm tied behind you, I think you could probably beat me into a pulp. Is it all right if we don't prove it?
We were talking about the diary, Archie.
Okay, what about it?
Archie, I don't even claim the handwriting is mine. What's handwriting when you're 6 years old? Still, the first page is one of those things that has name of parents, home address, and like that. Color of hair, eyes, you know.
Sure, I had one myself.
Certainly. Every child had one. One or a dozen. Maybe they still do. You fill in the first page, and then you never write another word.
Honey.
They were cheap. I doubt if they cost $0.25, and there was a place that said, my first date, favorite pastime.
Look, baby.
Oh, he calls me baby, Mr. Gaines.
Yes, I noticed that. I think he'd believe your story no matter what you told him.
Get lost, will you, Mr. Gaines?
What's that?
Get lost. Drop dead. Turn blue.
Well, I can take a hint. Good night, Archie. And Miss Lomax.
Prissy, isn't he?
Prissy is the word.
He doesn't seem to believe your story.
He believes what he's told to believe. It's his job.
Sure.
You believe me, don't you, Archie?
Honey, you're beautiful, just the way you are. Now, let's talk about the diary.
I hate you.
I hate you, too.
Shall we dance?
The diary.
Oh, dear.
Where is it?
Do you call this romance?
No, I call it working overtime. Where is it?
Here, in my handbag. Here. Push over. We look at it together. I'm not crowding you, am I?
What's a little crowding?
Cozy, isn't it? Now, look at the cover first. My diary, 1934. I suppose somebody gave it to me for my 6th birthday.
Let's just not suppose anything, shall we?
All right, Archie. Page 1. Name, Magda Crale. Date of birth, October 11th, 1928. But you read it. Or can you read?
Anything you can write, honey. Date of birth and so on. Father Horace Crale, Mother Mabel Crale. Hair black, eyes green. My favorite pastime, playing with dolls. Playing has a Y in it.
You know what I think, Archie? You wouldn't call that writing, would you? Not real writing.
It's more like printing.
I think my mother guided my hand when I wrote that.
Yeah, that's the way it looks, all right. Well...
Dance now?
Dance now. While we danced, while I held that disturbing girl in my arms, I tried to believe the case was just as simple as it seemed. Somehow she'd survived a plane crash, a head injury, and then a normal life with a couple who naturally wouldn't tell her that she wasn't really theirs. I tried to believe it. I was trying hard when...
Archie, don't look. There's Anthony George.
Oh, yeah, alone in the corner.
You've had a lot of experience, Archie. Do you think he's a killer?
A what?
Do you think he'd commit murder?
I don't think anything about him, but why should he?
For $10 million?
I see what you mean. Are you worried?
Not with you around, Archie. Not with you around.
It was like that, maybe even more like that, until the waiter told me I was wanted on the telephone. I asked her to keep the table warm, that I'd be right back.
Hello. This is Archie Goodwin.
Archie?
Oh, hello, Mr. Wolfe.
I've been talking to Mr. Creel.
Wonderful.
Little less humor, perhaps?
Okay, what about Mr. Creel?
He showed me some pictures of his daughter.
Baby pictures?
Unfortunately. Some of the pictures were missing from the album.
Those are the ones I've been looking at.
Archie, I'm interested in that birthmark.
So am I.
Do you think you could persuade the young lady to have a picture taken of her back undraped?
Wait a minute. Just one moment, please.
Well?
You mean that?
Clear picture in a bright light.
How would you like her posed, Mr. Wolfe?
I am not amused, Archie.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All I want is a clear, sharp, focused picture of that birthmark. And I expect you to get it for me. Good night, Archie.
Hello again.
Dance?
No. Talk.
More talk?
Lots more.
What now?
That birthmark.
So I've got a birthmark. What about it?
I wish I had one that was worth $10 million.
So do I. This one is worth nothing to me. Since my father doesn't believe I'm his daughter, and he's blind, that kind of identification doesn't mean anything to him.
You're forgetting the people he trusts. Hugh Gaines, for instance. If the birthmark is there, couldn't he look at it, compare it with those awful baby pictures, and say, yes, here is your daughter?
I've got news for you, Archie. He has looked at it. He says it looks the same as the one in the baby pictures.
Has he told your father that?
Yes. But he also told him he thought I was a fake. That somehow I found out that the 6-year-old daughter of a millionaire had died in a plane crash 13 years ago. And I found out she had a strawberry birthmark on her back. And I had one, too. So I decided to say that I was Magda Creel.
That's absurd.
Of course it is. You can see how it's going to work out, can't you, Archie?
Frankly, no. How?
My father went to Mr. Wolfe simply to have him prove that I am his daughter, whatever Hugh Gaines says. The only thing I'm afraid of, though...
What are you afraid of, baby?
I'm afraid my darling half-brother might kill him before he has a chance to change his will.
Isn't that a somewhat mercenary view to take of the matter?
Maybe it is, Archie. And maybe I'd feel differently about it if my father had found me instead of waiting for me to find him.
He tried, didn't he?
I wonder.
Let's get back to that birthmark. Are you allergic to floodlights? I know a photographer who has a studio.
Confound it, Archie.
How did you know it was going to be me?
Because nobody else would dare to call me this late. What do you want?
I got the pictures. They're drying now.
If you come home, bring them with you. They may be important tomorrow. Have you heard that Horace Creel was murdered?
No. How? Who? Where?
Tomorrow we'll talk about it, Archie. Good night.
At 4 p.m. the next day, there was quite a lot of confusion in Nero Wolfe's office. At his direction, I'd set up a picture screen at one end of the room, and on his desk at the other end, a rather strangely constructed projector. At 4:30, the guests arrived. Magda, Anthony George, Hugh Gaines, and, of course, Inspector Kramer, ready to make an arrest if he could figure out whom to arrest. Hello, Inspector.
Hi, Goodwin.
Magda, Anthony George,
Hello.
Hugh.
Yeah, what's this all about? What's going on, Archie?
You got me, Inspector. I think Mr. Wolfe wants to show slides of his trip to Yellowstone Park. But here he is. Ask him.
Oh, say, Wolfe, you want to know what I think?
Not in the least, Inspector. Sit down somewhere, won't you? Archie, will you turn out the lights? Thank you. Now, this is a picture of Magda Creel lying on her stomach at the age of 6 months. I changed the focus so, and we have a close-up of a birthmark. A smooth discoloration that looks as if it might have been painted on.
Now, look, Wolf. You said if I came here, you'd give me the guy who killed Horace Crail. And you show me a picture of a baby's back.
Inspector, if you open your mouth again, I may not keep my promise.
Go ahead.
While we look at this enlargement of a birthmark on baby's back, let us remember that the late Mr. Horace Crail was blind and never saw it.
So what? What's he getting at, Goodwin?
Inspector, if I knew, I'd tell you. Listen.
Mr. Crail had a trusted secretary, Hugh Gaines.
I'm here.
Of course, Mr. Gaines had a brilliant idea. He knew the tragedy of Mrs. Crail and her daughter, and he decided to bring Crail's daughter back to life.
What makes you think so, Mr. Wolfe?
You had access to the photograph album, and only you. Oddly enough, Mr. Crail didn't even know his daughter had a birthmark until you told him.
That may be true, but what of it?
It's unimportant. Now I want to show you another picture. Archie, explain this picture, will you?
Reading from left to right, this is a picture of Miss Crail's back. Very pretty, too.
As you can see, there is what appears to be a small birthmark somewhat under the left shoulder blade. I change focus, and as it becomes larger...
That's not a birthmark. That's tattooing. You can see it.
Tattooing, of course. And Mr. Gaines had a brilliant idea. How to make use of a tattooed birthmark, and Miss Magna to help him out. Blind as he was, Horace Crail saw through it. That's why Hugh Gaines had to kill him.
No, you don't, Gaines.
Mr. Wolfe. Mr. Wolfe, you all right?
Of course I'm all right. Well, Inspector Kramer, Mr. Gaines is your man. Another bottle of beer, please, Archie.
It's right there in front of you. You know, I was thinking, a girl can get herself tattooed, can't she? Is that a crime? What does it prove?
Archie, have I ever told you I love you?
I'm going to bed.
Good night, Archie.
You have been listening to The New Adventures of Nero Wolfe, starring Sidney Greenstreet. Tonight's transcribed story by Mindred Lord was based on the characters created by Rex Stout. This is an Edwin Fadiman production, produced and directed by J. Donald Wilson. In the cast were Harry Bartell as Archie Goodwin, and Martha Shaw, Vic Rodman, Peter Leeds, Gray Stafford, and Bill Johnstone. Next week at this same time, Nero Wolfe and Archie will bring you the case in room 304. Don Stanley speaking. 3 chimes mean good times on NBC. This Sunday, the glamorous and unpredictable Tallulah brings you another hour-and-a-half broadcast of The Big Show, starring Fred Allen, Judy Holliday, Joan Davis, Fran Warren, and many more. And this Sunday's Theater Guild on the Air production is the Broadway comedy The First Year. Starring in this Theater Guild presentation are Richard Widmark and Katherine Grayson. Remember, Tallulah Bankhead stars in her wonderful Big Show Sunday on NBC.
A good mystery, and Archie definitely got somewhat stuck on the girl in the case despite evidence to the contrary, as illustrated by the end of the episode. This was very well paced and had me guessing to the end, though it was somewhat unfair using a visual clue. But I don't think most of us, even if we'd been looking at it, would have been able to make that judgment about whether it was tattooed. But then again, Kramer was. Anyway, we do turn to listener comments. We got a voicemail from Johnson, and we'll go ahead and we'll take a listen.
Hey, Adam, this is Jonathan. I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and I just started listening to your great detectives of old-time radio, and I just wanted to say that I'm loving it, because I've been a fan of Sherlock Holmes and Nero Wolfe for years, but I could never find, any good radio dramas of Nero Wolfe or Sherlock Holmes, because most of the other ones mainly focus on other detectives, like you do, like Johnny Dollar and all them, the Thin Man, and I'm up to, I think, episode 294 right now. I'm going to listen to the Thin Man because I heard that the Thin Man's a great series. But I just wanted to let you know that you're doing a great job and keep up the great work, and I'll keep on listening. Bye.
Well, thanks very much, Johnson. And I like both the radio detectives and the hard-boiled eyes, and I also like some of these classic detectives like Holmes and Wolfe, and we'll also be hearing from Poirot in some coming episodes. So I like to keep balance and to play a variety of different detectives so we keep people interested. So I'm glad you've been enjoying it. That'll do it for this week. We'll be back next week with our last adventure of Nero Wolfe. And next Monday we're going to be playing a hard-boiled private eye show called Ideal in Crime, starring William Gargan. Join us for that then. Tomorrow, let George do it. Well, I did want to mention, I forgot to mention at the end of yesterday's program, that we've got an app extra posted as we're nearing the end of Nero Wolfe. It's a show with Sidney Greenstreet called The Amazing Mr. Manchester. It's a mystery show, and what exactly it's about is kind of a mystery to me. But take a listen if you've got the app or the premium site. It's the only episode that's in existence, so it's an interesting experience. Well, before we do get started, I do just want to ever so briefly remind you that we do release weekly articles at greatdetectives.net. These can be, as we're currently doing, a series on old-time radio and Great Detectives. Sometimes it'll be a review of a book or a movie or a mystery novel. So it's great fun. You can read them every week at greatdetectives.net. And if you've got a Kindle, you can subscribe and have the articles automatically delivered to your Kindle. Well, Virginia Gregg takes over the role of Brooksy this week. And, of course, this is a fairly big casting change. But I think Virginia Gregg does a good job here as Brooksy. And as we're about to hear in this episode, the production staff does a fantastic job working her into the role and getting the audience used to her. Of course, this is the first show where we get to hear Miss Gregg in a regular recurring role. We've kind of gotten to appreciate her talent through her roles in shows like Pat Novak for Heir, where she played about a dozen different femme fatales. And, of course, some of the guest spots she's done on Let George Do It and Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar. But this playing the detective's love interest became a regular thing for Virginia Gregg. On Richard Diamond, which had begun in April of 1949, she played the role of Helen Asher, Richard Diamond's love interest. And in 1960, after playing a wide variety of roles on Yours Truly, Johnny Dollar, they gave Bob Bailey's Johnny Dollar a regular girlfriend, played by Virginia Gregg. And while Gregg would do all sorts of roles in her career, it does have to be said that the detective girl is a specialty. So let's go ahead and we'll take a listen to today's episode of Let George Do It, Partner in Panama.
Well, notice, danger's my stock and trade. The job's too tough for you to handle, you got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Standard of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invite you to Let George Do It. Partner in Panama, another adventure of George Valentine.
Dear Mr. Valentine, the job's not too tough for me, but I don't want it.
Hey, wait a minute. Who is this, Lieutenant Riley?
It's the voice of desperation. Get over here quick.
Why?
Why? Why, he asks. Valentine is a character wrapped around my neck. His name is Grovich, the stupendous Mr. Grovich, Hollywood's most colossal producer of popcorn bait.
He makes movies?
Oh, no. Not without you, he doesn't. That's the job, Valentine. You're going to be the man behind an Oscar. That's an 8-ball in arms.
Please, Miss Brooks, I do not do cherry traces. My style is realism. My own invention, realism.
Oh, I see, Mr. Grovich.
In my last picture, a man chases a man across Golden Gate Bridge. You know where we took that picture?
Golden Gate Bridge.
Precisely. You have the feel of it. Real people, real places, real blood in the heart of the heroine, real bullet.
Yeah, sure, Mr. Grovich, and it's real money, too, I suppose. But what is it?
He's made a picture, but he can't release it, Valentine.
Why not? Nobody will buy it?
The world is clamoring for it. So is the Academy. And so is my bank. I have got $1 million tied up.
Well, what's the matter? What happened?
Vic Ruskin. That's what's happened.
Vic Ruskin? Huh?
Yes, a name from ancient history. One of the prehistoric thorns in my side.
Lieutenant, I've heard of Ruskin, but I thought he was dead.
So did I. So did the police in half a dozen cities all over the world. Only to be honest about it, he just disappeared 10 years ago. He might have stayed that way if it hadn't been for my friend Grovich here. But no, he's got to go around raising the dead. Mr. Valentine, this latest picture of mine that I can't release, it's a masterpiece. Why? It is real. What's real about it? People. Real people like bank robbers, murderers, you know. Like Vic Ruskin. He's in it. His name. Things he did.
Oh, now I get it, Mr. Grovich. You've done one of your super thrillers based on some of Vic Ruskin's crimes. And, you haven't bothered to get his permission first.
But I thought he was dead, and he had no relatives.
What makes you think he isn't dead?
He sent us a letter. He read about the picture in the fan magazine. He wants $50,000 for the right to use events of his life. $50,000 cash, and the lawyers tell me.
Did he sign the letter?
Yeah, sure. But there isn't a record of his signature we could check. But there's a record of other things. In the letter, he gives facts about his crimes only he and the police could have known. No, there's no doubt about it. It's him, all right.
Okay. So Vic Ruskin's alive instead of dead. And he's got the amazing gall to want $50,000 for giving you...
to give him the money.
What?
And if he sticks his neck out far enough to take the cash, maybe the police can close in and get him extradited before he pulls into hiding again.
Say that again, will you? Extradited?
Well, whoever delivers the money will have to go to Panama, naturally. That's where the letter came from.
Panama?
Oh, now, wait a minute.
Mr. Valentine, think of my picture. It's in the can, but on the hook. Look, it's a big favor to us, Valentine. Now, if you'll only...
Stop it, both of you. George, it's suicide. Vic Ruskin will know that whoever's bringing the money will want to catch him,
Miss
too.
Brooks, all Valentine does is deliver the money, get Ruskin's signature on the release, then duck out, and we do all the rest.
Yeah, and I suppose I find this guy wearing a sign around his neck saying...
Well, it's here in the letter. You meet a guide who'll take you to him, Del Catoni. Now, you meet Del Catoni at Balboa when you land at Tocumen Airport.
There, you see, nothing to it, Angel. Just an 8-ball with wings.
Excuse me, my friend. Would you be looking for
Huh? Oh, no. I just got in.
Oh, you didn't.
What's that?
My friend, I couldn't help noticing. You've been walking around the airport with your bag there like a man lost. As a native of the parts, I always like to help.
Okay, Irish. I got in half an hour ago from Managua. I have been looking for somebody, but not with your accent, I'm afraid. You're not Del Catoni.
A friend, my friend, a friend. He asked me to meet you. Poor Catoni is a musician, plays in the sailor place in the old town, Club Cortez. And, Mr. Valentine, since your plane come in at night...
He would have met me anyway.
Of course, to guide you to something. So you'll just be coming with me.
Not quite so fast, but...
With such a crowd here, a man would... Well, he should know how easy it is in a crowd to...
No, you don't. Let go of that bag. Hey!
Senor, what is it? You're sick. What has happened? Senor, please.
No. It's nothing. Forget it.
But, senor, the man. I saw the man.
Nothing happened, I said. Skip it, will you? A sucker just stole my 3 clean shirts, that's all. Welcome to Panama.
You're not drinking, monsieur?
No.
In the Club Cortez, everyone drinks.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm way behind. I'm an exception, that's all.
But you are alone.
Well, that's the way exceptions always are. Now, look, there's an English sailor across the bar who wants somebody to talk to.
He's quite happy talking to himself. I'm a singer, but in the Club Cortez, the boss says everyone should have a partner. What are you doing here?
Waiting for the music to stop? The orchestra. I like to visit with musicians.
Oh. And why are you in Panama?
Oh, now, look, sister, I don't see where... Oh, wait a minute. Come on, sit down.
Thank you.
You bump into people, don't you? Well, I had a friend down here once. Name was Ruskin, I believe.
Of course. Vic Ruskin.
Yeah. What do you have to drink?
Nothing.
Where did you know him? When?
A long time ago.
Know where he is now?
I wish that I did. I wish I could help you, monsieur.
Oh, what do you mean?
Nothing. Just that Vic Ruskin is dead, isn't he?
Okay, lady. Many thanks anyway.
But, monsieur...
I'll stick to musicians, thank you. Show me which one of these marimba boys is Catoni, will you?
Del Catoni?
Yeah, that's right. I'd like to meet him. Everybody should have a partner.
Then you're still alone, aren't you? I still have a chance.
What's that?
Don't you read Spanish? It was in all the newspapers.
Huh? Come on, let's have it.
Del Catoni was found murdered in the street, monsieur, more than 3 days ago.
We meet again, eh, Mr. Valentine?
Well, make yourself at home in my room, my friend.
I had a little key, and it just happened to fit.
Oh, well, don't apologize, Buster. After the runaround I've been through, I'm glad to have a man-sized shadow to work out on.
No, now let go.
I suppose you brought my suitcase back,
Yes,
huh?
yes, I did.
The shirts didn't fit, huh? You came to look for some more.
Please, I only wanted to see
All
you.
right, Irish, here I am. Now make it fast.
Well, my regards to you. Now, in the first place, Mr. Valentine...
Come on, faster.
But you must understand about the airport. I didn't intend...
Now, you listen to me. You knew Catoni was dead, but he was supposed to meet me. You know I'm delivering money to Vic Ruskin. He already tried to steal it once. Maybe you even know where Ruskin is. Well, now take the words out of your mouth and let's have it.
Mr. Valentine, my name is Pizarro Fane.
Oh, great combination.
The South American Irish. I'll have you know in the artillery under Simon Bolivar, my grandfather was...
Yeah, come on.
All right, but never mind. It's a good story sometime. By occupation, Mr. Valentine, I'm by way of being a barrister.
Lawyer? Oh, this gets wilder and wilder, doesn't it? What do you chase for ambulances down here?
Ambulances? Oh, I'm not in regular practice, as they say.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I've a preference for living down the coast, you know, banana plantations and hardwood jungle.
You mean down where it's hotter, you find there's less heat?
You're a smart man. I admit the stupidity is trying to steal that $50,000 from you, but, Mr. Valentine, do you know what a quid pro quo is?
Sure. It's the first nickel in the slot machine.
Remuneration, reward. It'd even be legal.
You mean if you can't fry a fish one way, you'll do it another. Now, what's the idea? You want to sell me what you know? Is that it?
I'll do even better. I'll sell an object. A statue.
A what?
A statue, my friend. In a bamboo thicket by a path crossing. And as for what all I know, well, I'm sure we can reach a price.
Yeah. You know, prices are slipping these days.
Mr. Valentine, my information would be accurate. I'm not an amateur informer.
Don't be so eager, Pizarro. You make it sound even phonier.
Please, don't bother to answer that.
Yeah, hello?
Hello, monsieur.
Well, it's you, huh?
Who better would you expect, monsieur?
Pan American Airways with a free ticket home. I'm getting sick of the local population.
But I'm only trying to help you, monsieur.
Oh, sure, I know. Now, look, I'm busy right now. I've got a professional liar here.
Now, look, Valentine.
But, monsieur, listen. I've been tracing the actions of the musician for you, Del Catone. I found a ship captain, Captain Tugg, who was with him a week ago down the coast.
Down the coast?
The captain knows nothing, but he picked up Catone a week ago from a visit to some banana plantation.
Huh? Lady, maybe you've just begun to clean up a liar.
What? But, monsieur, can't I help more? Can't I?
Thanks, no. I just decided to make a purchase someplace else.
Mr. Valentine!
Hold it a second.
Mr. Valentine! Outside there! Look out!
Monsieur, where are you?
I'm right here on the rug. Where do you think?
But what was it? What happened?
Do you really think you could help me find Vic Ruskin? Down the coast with this captain you dug up, find the plantation?
I would hope so, monsieur. I would want to... whatever you want.
Okay, sister. Seeing the dance floor's just been swept clean by bullets, I guess you finally got yourself a partner. The competition was just shot full of holes.
We'll return to tonight's adventure of George Valentine in just a moment. One of these days, you get in your car to start out to a dinner party, a business trip, or maybe a family gathering. You touch the starter, and, dead battery. But there's an easy way to avoid that kind of holdup and have your car start fast every time. The protective service you get at an independent Chevron gas station and a standard station will do it. They can tell in the jiffy if corrosion is threatening the battery cable. They'll make sure the water level is right and the terminal posts and clamps are okay. Why not get this speedy protective service tomorrow? Avoid the delay and extra costs of a neglected battery. It's especially important at this time because short trips in cold weather put extra drain on the battery, cut down on its ability to do its job. And, of course, your battery loses power most when your car's used least. So for full starting power and to keep your lights and radio working properly, ask for a battery check. It's another protective service offered you at standard stations and at independent Chevron gas stations where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. You come down to Panama with $50,000 in cash. You're to deliver it to Vic Ruskin, a criminal who's been hiding out for 10 years but is now threatening to sue a movie company which dared to make a movie about him on the supposition that he was dead. But it's not so easy delivering the money, is it? The guide Ruskin sends to meet you is murdered before your arrival. And then a lawyer of sorts who is offering to sell his knowledge is shot from outside your own hotel window. Well, if your name is George Valentine, you give yourself a third and last chance as you sail down the coast with a girl you found in a bar and the boat captain she found, Captain Togg.
Well, a little calmer this morning, huh?
Yeah.
You don't talk much, do you, Captain?
Why talk? There is nobody to talk to but people. Ha.
Anyway, it is a little calmer.
I'm turning into the main river current.
Yeah, so I see. Can't you remember any more about dropping Catone off, picking him up on your way back to Panama? Didn't he?
Wake up down there, Pedro. High speed. Watch the bridge is scraping in the mud, huh?
Say, look, Captain Togg, the plantation pier. Don't you know who lives there? Haven't you ever heard the name Vic Ruskin?
From you, yeah. I know the big clot plantation I do business for. The little forgotten dead ones. Numbers and places, that's all. For the alligators and snakes to lie waiting for man to lose his fight with the jungles. Each one of us to his own craziness, eh?
What do you mean?
Here she comes.
Oh. Now listen, Sarge, she found you, but I hired you. I'm paying the bill, you understand?
Huh? Yeah. Perhaps not so crazy. I don't forget. Slower on the engine, you idiot!
We're almost there, monsieur.
Yeah.
When we go ashore, when you give him the money, what will you say?
I'm going alone.
It may be hard to find
If
it.
there's a house, it won't be far from the pier. If Ruskin's in it, I'll be back on the boat fast.
I knew him once. I could help to recognize him for you.
Look, sister, I've got my own way. Hey, wait a minute. Cut it out. All right, cut it out, will you, Sammy?
Say out. That thing.
Sure. Who'd you think it'd be? Would you...
Excuse. Come with me.
Oh, yeah, sure. It's real funny, isn't it? You're Indian getting my gun.
Well, what do you expect, tourist? You don't think I'd let you come calling with a gun in your pocket?
Come on. Sign the papers, Ruskin. I've got a date.
Well, I gotta read the small print, ain't I? Boy, all them whereases. I'm in the movies, Valentine. I hereby release all rights. That's me.
Yeah, well, it kills me, too. Let's see a sample signature.
Oh, a legal beagle, huh? There. How do you like that? Oh, it's the same, all right. Check it against the letter I wrote Grovich.
Okay, you're it. Now, come on. Scribble it on the papers.
There's a little matter of money.
There you are, big shot. 50 grand.
Look. Oh, baby, look. You don't know what they mean down here. It's too bad Tony can't be seeing this. He'd enjoy it. Look at him.
You could drop one on his grave.
Just look at all the... What?
I said on his grave.
Whose grave?
Oh, come on. Cut it out. Catoni's dead, and you know it.
I laugh a lot, tourist. But I don't like jokes.
I don't know any. The Irishman's dead, too. Bizarro Fane. But you know that.
Valentine, what are you talking about? I live in the jungle. You said Catoni.
Sure, you want me to think you've been a hermit 10 years, so I'll send the police in this direction, maybe. But your face isn't yellow enough.
What?
A guy in the bush lives on Adiprene, doesn't he? For malaria. And this place of yours, Buster, it's broken down. You haven't got enough supplies. What did you do? Come down just before me so you could meet me here?
Shut up.
Maybe you were even at Panama when I was. Maybe you even killed those guys so you wouldn't have to run a split with them.
I said shut up. Give me that money. I'm getting out of here. Give it to me, I said.
Stop it!
Well, you've got your uses in a shore party after all, haven't you, lady? Now, just let me hold that gun. And...
No. He was signing your paper, monsieur.
Tasha. Hello, Tasha. Yes, I was just...
He will sign your paper, monsieur.
Sure, I'll sign it. There you are.
And the money, monsieur.
He's already got it.
Then the business is over. Stand very still, monsieur, to one side.
Oh, no, don't!
Give me that, you crazy little... What's the matter with you? Drop it, I said.
All right, monsieur.
Well, the business is over, all right. He's dead.
I know it.
Well, what in the name of blue blazes do you...
He was my husband.
You're what?
Vic Ruskin was my husband. I told you this trip was important to me. I was as anxious to find him as you.
Oh, sure. So you kill him in front of a witness. Big love.
You may do what you like. I've tried to find him for years.
You were really married?
In Venezuela 10 years ago. You ran away, took everything I had. My life isn't very pretty.
And now you're a widow. And he was such a heel, a local court might let you off easy. And then you'd have $50,000 inheritance. Maybe it is worth it.
I don't want the money. You take it. There, in your pocket, monsieur.
What? Oh, okay, sister. Now go on back. I'll take care of things here.
Shall I wait for you outside by the bamboo?
No. Go on back to the boat. Tog won't leave without me.
Of course not, but don't you think...
Go on, I said beat it, will you?
Yes, monsieur.
Something a wild Irishman said keeps sticking in my mind. In a bamboo thicket by a path crossing. Sure, it's even the only crossing. I'll tell you what I know, my friend. An object. A statue. Pizarro, I'll bet you're laughing at me. Hey. He wasn't kidding. This is it, all right. Homemade statue. Tombstone. Rest in peace. Victor Ruskin. Died 1939. Valentine, I guess you finally dug a grave for yourself, didn't you?
There's to sail, Mr. Valentine, huh? Tides below won't wait, you know.
Yeah, Captain. I'm all finished ashore.
Yeah. Pedro, your legs come.
Where's the girl now, Captain?
She went to her cabin. We'll be casting off.
Yeah. Well, I'll be watching from on deck.
Pedro! Get that clean sailing so I can toss the line.
Hello.
I was going to rest, monsieur, but you see, I'm here.
Yeah, so am I. A person left up there in the jungle wouldn't have any way to get out, would he?
Of course not.
So the money's still safe, too, still here in my pocket.
But of course.
You know, I guess I had a couple of chances to live and didn't take them.
What?
Back there in the house, I still had a chance to live. Only I had to get curious and goad that guy up there about Catoni and about his not really living here and about all the things.
I have killed a man, monsieur. I do not want to talk about...
Oh, yeah, you killed him, all right. Because I went too far and found out too much, and so did he. That's why Catoni died and Pizarro. They knew too much they might use for themselves. Sure, you killed him. You even said you didn't care what happened. But it's like the money. You knew it had come back to you. You knew you were safe. Because now I'm on the death list, too.
Monsieur,
because now
no.
I know too much, too. I know you were lying like a rug when you said he was Ruskin, when you said he was your husband.
Get away from me.
Oh, no, you don't. It's like this, doesn't it? He was a phony put in there for the job. Oh, sure, he's the same guy I wrote to the movie company, so the handwriting would check. And Catoni, he was going to be my guy.
Let go of me. Let go of me.
Only $50,000 is a lot of dough down here, isn't it? I guess the hired hands got greedy. Was that why Catoni was knocked off? The lawyer Pizarro, I suppose, gave advice on how to handle a movie company in the first place. But of course he had to get it when he came offering to spill me the whole works about Ruskin.
I was on the telephone. I wasn't near your hotel room. I didn't do it.
Keep that mouth shut. I want to live. I saw the tombstone, sister. Vic Ruskin died 1939. Only a guy named Lieutenant Riley convinced me that Ruskin's really alive.
I'll play clear, Pedro. That's me.
He changes his identity. He builds a new identity he can live with and stay with even after engineering a fraud like this one. Oh, no. The pillow goes over the mouth. Don't mind if I tie the sheets a little tightly, do you? It's my life, remember? Sure, baby. A good identity. One that gets you around to all the places to arrange this business. To kill Catoni and the Irishman. All right, Tasha. The place for you is overboard. Don't worry, sister. You're not going overboard. A chair makes a better splash.
Tasha! Baby, that something's overboard. Stop the engine, you idiot. Tasha!
Pleasant dreams, Captain Ruskin.
What are you going to do? You can't run the boat. You're still miles from nowhere.
I'll do all right, sister. I can use Ruskin's gun on Pedro. I can use the wireless.
It would have been so simple. Vic would have shot you aboard. You would have come back a casualty of the greedy dead man in the jungle.
Sure, and I suppose with a sob story, the widow would have collected the money legally. And Ruskin could have gone right on being Captain Tog forever.
I underestimated you, monsieur. I'm sorry, monsieur. Can't you at least look at me for once and... Nobody has to know about the $50,000, and we can...
The dance is over, Tasha. It's time to change partners.
George, what was she like? You've told me everything else, but what was Tasha really like?
Oh, well, I don't know, Brooksy. Ask Lieutenant Riley when he gets back from Panama with Ruskin.
What was she like?
Oh, now, look, Angel, keep your mind on the subject. It's not every night we get to see a private showing of a movie, is it? Right here in the home of a big producer?
No, I will kill myself. I am ruined. I will kill myself.
Mr. Grovich, what's the matter?
I thought you were on the phone.
Long distance is a tragedy. My beautiful realism.
Long distance?
From Panama, from Lieutenant Riley. Now that Dick Ruskin is being extradited, he will stand trial for many crimes.
But, Mr. Grovich...
$500,000 he wants now. $500,000 for his rights so he can hire the best lawyers. This is what happens to me, the father of realism. The bank won't stand for it. My beautiful picture, every part of it so true to life, and now it would never breathe.
Hey, wait a minute, Mr. Grovich. I've got an idea for a picture you could do. Look, a young man goes down to the jungle to deliver a crook some money. Only there he meets a very beautiful girl. But she's really the crook's wife. And she's...
No, it is not real. This could never happen.
There's your answer, Angel.
If your car seems to have lost its pep, if it starts hard, acts logy in traffic, and drags on hills, maybe you can blame it on the season. For the gasoline in your car is sensitive to climatic changes. That's why Chevron Supreme gasoline is climate-tailored. Based on year-round weather reports, it's tailored to each season and to the West's different altitude and temperature zones. To get the best out of your car any time of the year and wherever you drive, go on Chevron Supreme. It's a premium quality gasoline, and with the first tank full, you'll notice how much better your car responds. Faster starts, smoother pickup in traffic, powerful ping-free performance on hills. In fact, you can't buy a better gasoline for today's high-compression engines. Ask for Chevron Supreme tomorrow. Get it at standard stations and at independent Chevron gas stations where they say and mean, we take better care of your car. Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West. Robert Bailey is starred as George. Let George Do It is written by David Victor and Jackson Gillis and directed by Don Clark. Virginia Gregg appeared as Brooksy, Wally Mayer as Lieutenant Riley. Ed Begley was Grovich, Ted DeCorsia, Thane, Maria Palmer, Tasha, Joseph Granby, Togg, and Fred Shields, Ruskin. The music is composed and presented by Eddie Dunstetter, your announcer, John Heaston. Listen again next week, same time, same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. Well, once again, we kind of see a easing of Virginia Gregg in. This episode did not have a whole lot of Brooksy in it, which made it, I think, kind of a perfect transition show. Because, essentially, we only hear a few lines of the new Brooksy. And then, of course, for those of you who've been listening a while, next week, would have been the Christmas episode, which we played the last two Christmases, so we'll skip this next week's show and go to the episode that aired on the 26th. But in that episode, Brooksy was kidnapped for, I think, about a third to one half of the episode. So some pretty smart directing here. I love this mystery. This one just took a ton of twists and turns. Of course, the authors succeeded in keeping me mystified. And the false ending was when she shot her quote-unquote husband was so believable, I actually had to stop and take a look down and say and see how much longer we had left in the show. Because I was thinking, boy, it sure does sound kind of soon for this to be over. But overall, a very well done episode. That'll do it for now. We'll be back next week. Another episode will let George do it. Tomorrow, Sherlock Holmes. Well, before we do get started, I want to let you know about Netflix. Netflix is a fabulous service that offers a world of entertainment. It seems like every week I'm stumbling into some new series I hadn't noticed there before. Classic TV shows like Hawaii Five-0, Mission Impossible, The Cosby Show, and many more are available for your viewing pleasure on the Instant Watch, along with classic movies such as The Third Man, and Arsenic and Old Lace. Plus, there's a great DVD library of nearly 100,000 titles. You can try Netflix out for free by going to netflix.greatdetectives.net. Well, we turn to a situation that we had occur twice before on Sherlock Holmes, and once on Jeff Regan, where one of our stars is not available, so we have a substitute. And this time, it's Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. And Ben Wright, who filled in as Watson during the previous season, filled in as Sherlock Holmes. Wright would get to play Holmes in his own right when the series, which went to Mutual in 1947, returned to ABC in 1949. He played Holmes for one season with Eric Snowden as Watson. Tom Conway was ill for this particular episode. Was meant by illness, we don't know. We do know that during his brief time after having replaced Vincent Price as the Saint, that he was unable to appear due to his alcoholism. And Larry Dobkin actually who was one of his co-stars, had to actually take over the role of Saint. The alcohol was a lifelong struggle for Conway, which he ended up losing. So whether that played a part in this, we don't know. But anyway, we're going to get to hear Ben Wright, and Wright is a great character actor. If you listen to Andrew's Old Time Radio Daily Westerns podcast, he does the voice of Hey Boy. And we'll also get to hear him in one of the underrated detective shows, Pursuit, eventually. For now, it's time for the singular affair of the ancient Egyptian curse.
Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo present the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, starring Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson and Tom Conway as Sherlock Holmes. Tonight, owing to Mr. Conway's illness, the part of Sherlock Holmes will be played by Mr. Ben Wright. And now for our weekly visit with Sherlock Holmes' famous colleague, your friend and mine, Dr. Watson. Good evening, Dr. Watson.
Good evening, Mr. Bell. I'm glad to see you. Make yourself at home.
Thank you, Dr. Watson. You know, I've been waiting eagerly all week to hear about the singular affair of the ancient Egyptian curse.
And a most singular affair it was, to be sure. It had its beginnings in the august halls of the British Museum. I've been looking over my old records to refresh my memory, and even after all these years, it sends what in Scotland they call a cow grue down my spine.
I can hardly wait, Dr. Watson. Recently, in a poll conducted throughout the country, women picked the 10 best groomed men in America. These men were all men at the top: statesmen, governors, motion picture stars, producers, and millionaires. And men, I'm sure you'll be interested in hearing how a recent survey showed that Kreml Hair Tonic is preferred among America's top-flight executives and most successful men. But then why shouldn't it be? Kreml contains a special combination of hair grooming ingredients which is found in no other hair tonic. This is why Kreml gives a man's hair such a natural, well-groomed look, such a handsome, clean-cut appearance. Kreml also keeps the hair neatly in place longer, with a healthy-looking luster. Yet it never leaves your hair looking or feeling greasy. After you apply Kreml, you can rub your hand over your hair, and your hair always feels so delightfully clean. Notice, too, how no greasy film comes off on your hand or on your hatband. Just use a little Kreml on your hair in the morning, and at night your hair looks as neatly groomed as when you first combed it in the morning. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. Now, Dr. Watson,
What about the singular affair which began in the sacrosanct confines of the British Museum?
Well, I must admit that I was not a frequent visitor to those gloomy halls, but on this particular morning, Holmes had been insistent. All the scientists in London, especially the archaeologists, were agog over the arrival of Lord Cranwood's sensational Egyptian discoveries. For several days, Holmes had been deeply immersed in research among the Cranwood antiquities, so that now I find myself in the Egyptian gallery of the British Museum.
I say, Watson, look here. This notation definitely proves the use of stringed instruments as well as flutes as early as 3000 B.C.
Oh, very interesting, Holmes. Interesting indeed.
If you please, sir. The smoking is absolutely forbidden.
Huh? Oh, all right.
Hello, Holmes.
Oh, Watson, I don't think you know Professor Halliday of the British Museum. Professor, this is my friend, Dr. Watson.
Dr. Watson? Not the eminent Dr. Eustace Watson, the well-known archaeologist of Edinburgh. I'm honored.
No, sir. Dr. John H. Watson of Baker Street.
Oh, sorry.
This is Dr. Watson's first visit to all your magnificent new acquisitions, Professor Halliday.
It's a veritable treasure house, gentlemen. The late Lord Cranwood's excavations at the site of ancient Abbotts have given the museum a priceless mine of information.
And yet the price in human lives has not been inconsiderable. First Lord Cranwood himself, only a few days after the shrine of Har-Shafit was opened.
A man of almost 80, Mr. Holmes. The strain and excitement of the discovery were too much for him.
No doubt. And then a month later, Dr. Duma, disappearing mysteriously from camp, only to be found hopelessly insane and babbling madly before he died. And young Wilson vanished into thin air and assumed to have been lost overboard from the ship that was bringing the expedition back to England. Oh, it was a calm, moonlit night.
Don't tell me that you, of all people, believe this newspaper talk of Har-Shafit's curse, Mr. Holmes.
I believe nothing that is not susceptible of proof, Professor. Evidently, the new Lord Cranwood is quite undisturbed by any threats of a curse upon his family. I've seen him working here every day this week.
Oh, is that Lord Cranwood?
Yes, the heavy-set, middle-aged man over there, just beyond that fifth sarcophagus.
Which?
The chap with the rather florid face, just packing those notes into his briefcase.
Oh, looks fit enough, I must say. Judging from his appearance, I should think the curse of what's-his-name wouldn't have much luck with him.
You'll excuse me, gentlemen. I want a word with Lord Cranwood before he leaves.
Sir Holmes, supposing I run along. I'll meet you at the club for lunch and...
Lord Cranwood, what's the matter?
Why, he's collapsed.
Quick, Watson.
I don't understand. He just seemed to keel over.
Let me take a look at him.
You were standing right beside him, Professor. Just what happened?
I was speaking to him. He clutched his throat, tried to say something, and collapsed.
Holmes.
Yes, Watson?
The man's dead.
Impossible.
Cause of death, Watson?
Well, I should have said heart, but...
But the curious rigidity of the muscles of his hands and throat aren't consistent with that diagnosis. Is that it, Watson?
Quite correct, Holmes.
You would better notify Scotland Yard at once, Professor Halliday.
Scotland Yard? Mr. Holmes, are you suggesting...
I suggest nothing, Professor Halliday. But Lord Cranwood has died extremely suddenly. In view of the 3 previous deaths which have occurred among the members of the expedition, I feel that this is definitely a matter for the police.
I'll send for them at once.
I'm certain, Watson, that a second look at Lord Cranwood's body will suggest to your mind a cause of death with which you cannot be unfamiliar after your army career in India. The congested eyeballs, the rigid neck muscles.
You mean snake bite?
Precisely. The bite of some venomous and highly poisonous snake is the only cause consistent with these appearances.
But there are no snakes here in the British Museum.
That, Watson, is why I sent for Scotland Yard.
You've been pacing up and down now for 2 solid days, Holmes. Would it be too much to ask you to be seated for at least 5 minutes?
I'm sorry, Watson. The lack of any satisfactory solution to the problem of Lord Cranwood's death has driven me almost out of my mind.
You find the problem insoluble, then?
So far. Come in. Inspector Lestrade. I've been expecting a call from you.
This thing's fair got me beat, Mr. Holmes.
Well, sit down, Inspector. Can I get you a drink?
Thank you, Doctor. I'll be glad of one. Well, we've got the coroner's verdict, Mr. Holmes, and much good it does us. Death by misadventure from unknown causes.
Well, you could hardly expect a coroner's jury to say more. Did the Home Office pathologist confirm my opinion?
Here you are, Lestrade.
Well, thank you, Doctor. Oh, yes, Mr. Holmes. All the appearances of death were consistent with the bite of some deadly snake. But did we find any snakes running around?
Were there any snake bites on the deceased body? No. Why, you yourself, within a few yards of the man, Mr. Holmes, and you know as well as I do that if a man gets bitten by a snake, he's going to let out a yell.
I know exactly how you feel, Lestrade.
Yeah, and have you seen the papers? Scotland Yard baffled by 5,000-year-old curse. Death strikes again from Egyptian tomb.
You can't blame the journalist, Lestrade. It's a newspaper editor's dream.
And Scotland Yard's nightmare. Well, I must be off. The commissioner wants to see me this afternoon. You can be thankful this isn't one of your cases, Mr. Holmes. I think this one would be too much even for you.
Phew. Never seen Lestrade quite so worked up before.
And I can't say that I blame him, Watson. Well, come along. Since the late Lord Cranwood's funeral is to take place at 2 o'clock, we might well stroll over to Hanover Square. Perhaps a brisk walk may serve to blow the cobwebs from our brains.
First time I've known you stand about outside a church at a funeral, Holmes, peering at the relatives of a dead man.
I'm anxious to see the new Lord Cranwood, as well as his relatives. He was a nephew of the late Lord's, you know, and the family's interest in Egyptology has been inherited by him, along with the title.
Here they come.
There's the new Lord Cranwood.
I wouldn't want to be in his boots with a curse hanging over me head.
There's Lord Cranwood, Watson.
Husky-looking young chap. Looks as though it'd take more than a family curse to get him down. Who's that coming after him, the pale young fellow in the wheelchair?
His cousin, Mr. Neville Robertson, I believe. Been hopelessly paralyzed ever since boyhood. Horse rolled on him while hunting.
Yes, the lines of pain and suffering are very evident in the poor fellow's face.
That must be Robertson's older brother, Mr. Oliver Robertson. That rather heavy-set young man just coming out. I assume that's his wife with him, the girl with the black veil.
Well, it's rather rough on them, all these curious people staring. Come along, Holmes. Let's be off.
Very well, Watson. I've seen all that
I beg your pardon, sir, but aren't you Mr. Sherlock Holmes?
Yes?
Oh, my name's Oliver Robertson. Fortunate coincidence, my seeing you here. I'd intended sending you a message this evening.
A message?
Yes, I wanted you to... Well, this is hardly the place to discuss such matters. Look, I'm staying at my cousin, Lord Cranwood's house. I wonder if you'd be good enough to come there this evening.
Would 9 o'clock be satisfactory?
Excellent, Mr. Holmes. Good day, sir.
Good day, Mr. Roberts.
Oh, come in, gentlemen, come in. I don't think you know my wife. Dear, may I introduce Mr. Sherlock Holmes?
How do you do? And this is my colleague, Dr. Watson.
How do you do?
I'm very happy to see you here, Mr. Holmes. And you too, Dr. Watson.
Mr. Holmes, my wife and I, well, to put it frankly, have asked you to come here because we're afraid. Not for ourselves, but for my cousin, the new Lord Cranwood.
Mr. Holmes, neither Oliver nor myself is of a nervous temperament. If you've read the accounts of the Cranwood expedition, you must appreciate my feeling that we're contending against more than mere ill fate.
4 members of the same small group, dying mysteriously or by violence within a few weeks of each other.
So you don't put any stock in all this talk about an ancient Egyptian curse?
I don't really know.
Tell me, Mr. Robertson, does the new Lord Cranwood share your fears?
I regret to say he does not. He laughed when I told him I'd asked you here.
Am I interrupting a council of war, or may I be permitted to be present?
Oh, come in by all means, Neville. Here, let me give you a hand with your wheelchair.
I can manage.
My brother Neville, gentlemen. Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
How do you do? I assume that the presence of the celebrated sleuth of Baker Street is not unconnected with the curse of the Cranwood.
Please, Neville, don't make fun of us for being frightened. After all, it's Derek we're worrying about, not ourselves.
Time enough for you to worry, Oliver, when the curse catches up with Derek. Then you'll be Lord Cranwood yourself, and it'll be my turn to start worrying.
I gather, Mr. Robertson, that you are somewhat skeptical regarding the efficacy of Harshafit's 5,000-year-old curse.
My granduncle died of heart failure after the excitement of discovering the tomb. Dr. Dumas' death was certainly not the first case of sunstroke that's ever been heard of in Egypt. And Wilson, who fell overboard from the ship, was notoriously fond of the bottle. Does that answer your question?
Ingenious, Mr. Robertson, but it leaves out of account your uncle's death in the British Museum the other day.
I could offer you a dozen theories to account for that, but I doubt if they'd be sensational enough to please you.
Mr. Holmes, regardless of what my cousin may say, and I know he'll agree with my brother, I wish to engage you to prevent any repetition of the tragedies which have already struck this family.
Do say you will, Mr. Holmes.
I will do my best, Mr. Robertson, to keep Lord Cranwood safe from harm, but without his cooperation, I greatly fear that
Stimson said he wanted to see me, Oliver. Oh, I beg your pardon. I didn't know you had guests. I very much want to see you, Derek. This is Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. My cousin, Lord Cranwood, gentlemen.
How do you do?
I'm sorry, gentlemen. I have no sympathy with my brother's fears, nor do I see any necessity for dragging detectives into this matter. I trust you'll excuse me. Good night. Well, you see, Mr. Holmes, it's just as I told you.
But I do hope you'll do your best anyway, Mr. Holmes.
I promise you I shall.
Your task won't be made any easier, Mr. Holmes, by my cousin's stubborn determination to continue working at the museum. He's arranged with Professor Halliday to work there at night in the future, beginning tomorrow. He wishes to avoid the stares of the curious.
Interesting.
Great Scott, my watch must have stopped. 9:30, and I haven't as yet fed my snakes.
Snakes? Did you say snakes?
Why, yes, Doctor. Since my affliction debars me from digging in Egyptian tombs and similar active pastimes, I amuse myself with a small herpetarium. Would you care to see my collection?
Good heavens, no.
Or some other time, perhaps, Mr. Robertson. Dr. Watson and I must be off.
Good. Snakes. I must say, Holmes, that I find that sinister cripple Neville and his nasty collection of poisonous reptiles highly suspicious.
Well, there's no doubt that Neville's personality has been warped by his affliction. And the availability of snake venom is, of course, significant.
And look at his motive, Holmes. Look at his motive. The Cranwood title and the Cranwood fortune.
But there's one thing you've forgotten, Watson. Even if the new Lord Cranwood were to die, it would be Neville's older brother who would inherit. Oliver and his wife would become Lord and Lady Cranwood.
Are you trying to tell me that a murderer who'd killed two men would boggle at a third? If Cranwood dies and Oliver gets the title, he'd be the last barrier Neville's way. I don't like to say it, Holmes, but for once you seem to be singly obtuse about the facts of this case.
Possibly, Watson. At any rate, I intend that you and I shall be present, although concealed, when Lord Cranwood visits the Egyptian galleries tomorrow night.
You mean that you anticipate an attempt upon his life?
As I have told you on previous occasions, Watson, it's a great mistake to theorize ahead of one's data.
Mr. Holmes, you don't really put any faith in all this talk about the supernatural curse?
Do you, Watson?
Dash it, no, of course not.
Good. Well, then I trust that tomorrow night you will arm yourself with your service revolver.
Oh, really?
Yes, Watson. I should like to be in readiness for anything we may encounter at the British Museum. Supernatural or otherwise.
Empty place at night, isn't it?
Of humanity? Yes.
What do you mean?
Merely that the relics of the past are all about us.
Oh, yes, of course, sir.
On this way, through the northern vestibule.
I say, Holmes, what's that thing? Looks like a coffin.
That's what it is.
Oh, good, good.
Here we are. He'll no doubt work at that long table. It has the only decent light in the room. And you take that side of the table, Watson. I'll take this. And make certain there's no one and nothing concealed.
You're not expecting to find a snake anywhere, are you, Holmes?
I don't expect to find anything. I merely wish to make certain that there is nothing to find. Now, careful, Watson. Don't knock over that little figure.
What the devil is it?
And the Egyptians call those little statues the answerers. They were buried in the cedar coffins within the sarcophagi to accompany the dead and to obey their orders.
A pleasant idea, I must say. Well, there's nothing hidden on this side of the table.
Nor here. Now, there's an excellent spot to conceal ourselves. Over here, Watson.
Great. God, what a horrible sight. What sort of a nightmare is that?
Appropriately enough, it's a statue of Har-Shafit, the ram-headed god. Oh, excellent, Watson. Now, this will do perfectly. We can see everything in the room from behind here.
Just what are you expecting, Holmes?
I don't know. Quiet. There's someone coming.
papers out of this briefcase. Oh, now that he's turned the lamp up, I can see a bit better. Oh, he's all right so far. He's settling down to work.
What? Something's wrong. Quick!
He must have fainted.
Here's the antitoxin. Give him the injection. Hurry!
It's too late, Holmes. He's dead.
In just a moment, we'll rejoin Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson as they endeavor to solve the mystery of the ancient Egyptian curse. Men, if you want to be a success in life, remember that well-groomed hair adds a great deal to a man's appearance. And one of the first requisites of handsome, healthy-looking hair is a hygienic scalp. So start at once and take better care of the hair you've got. And if you're smart, you'll use Kreml hair tonic. No other hair tonic keeps the hair more neatly in place without looking or feeling greasy. But men, Kreml does lots more than keep hair looking handsome. Kreml's light oils have a grand lubricating effect on a dry scalp. At the same time, Kreml removes itchy, loose dandruff. Notice how alive and tingling your scalp feels. And you like to massage Kreml on your scalp because it's such a clean product. It never feels greasy or sticky. And if your hair, like so many men's, is so dry that it breaks and falls when you comb it, Kreml actually helps condition the hair in that it makes it feel softer, more pliable, and look as if it had some body to it. So men, for handsome, groomed hair and a more hygienic scalp, use Kreml daily. Buy a bottle of Kreml at any drugstore. Ask for an application at your barber's. Kreml, Kreml Hair Tonic. That famous modern hair tonic which has become such a nationwide favorite. And now back to Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson and our story.
I say, Holmes, if you won't have any lunch, do at least take a cup of tea.
No, thank you, Watson. I'm not hungry.
You've been saying that ever since that poor fellow Derrick was killed the night before last. You simply must eat, Holmes.
My appetite will return when I have a solution for this case, Watson, and not before.
Well, I've hesitated to say it, Holmes, but if that man had died by any natural means in front of our very eyes, I'm perfectly certain that you would have solved the riddle.
Well, if your hypothesis is correct, Watson, this case is not a matter of a mortal's minds. And that I refuse to admit.
Well, we saw him come in. We saw him open his briefcase. He turned up the lamp, sat down.
Thank you, Watson.
Thank me for what?
You've just given me some remarkably interesting food for thought.
Oh, really? Come in. Why, Mrs. Robertson. Oh, I beg your pardon. It's Lady Cranwood now, isn't it?
Makes me unhappy to say that it is, Dr. Watson.
Won't you sit down, Lady Cranwood? I've already expressed to your husband my deep feeling over the tragedy I failed to prevent.
Let me assure you, Mr. Holmes, that neither my husband nor I feel that you were in any way to blame.
I appreciate your kindness, Lady Cranwood, but I still blame myself for having failed to reach a solution.
And that is why I've come to see you this morning, Mr. Holmes. I hardly know how to say it. My suspicion is such a horrible one.
Oh, there, my dear.
I'm convinced that Oliver is in deadly peril. And from his own brother.
Do you hear that, Holmes?
You felt it too, Dr. Watson. Oh, I've been fighting down a horrible thought, denying it even to myself. But I felt I had to tell you, Mr. Holmes.
Well, have you any proof, Lady Cranwood? Anything definite on which to base such an accusation?
Only Neville's sneers and his jealousy of my husband. And those horrible snakes of his.
Perhaps you may be able to assist me in confirming or disproving your suspicions of Neville, Lady Cranwood.
Anything I can do, Mr. Holmes. Anything.
I imagine that the entire family, and the servants as well, will all be attending the funeral this afternoon.
Yes, of course.
Then if you will be good enough to leave me your key to the house, I shall take advantage of everyone's absence to go there and investigate one or two possibilities that have occurred to me.
Of course, Mr. Holmes. Here is the key.
Thank you. And one other thing. I should appreciate it if you would ask your husband to meet Watson and myself at the museum tonight, about 9 o'clock.
At the museum?
Yes. I feel that a reenactment of the late Lord Cranwood's death may bring us to a solution.
Do you think it's necessary, Mr. Holmes?
I think it is vitally necessary.
Very well. I will ask my husband to meet you at the museum at 9. I must go now. Goodbye. Goodbye, Dr. Watson.
Goodbye. Poor woman, no wonder she's overwrought.
Come, Watson. Your hat and stick. We have work to do.
Cranwood's house, you mean?
Well, I shall go there this afternoon. But meanwhile, I want you to take a note to Lestrade at Scotland Yard and personally see to it that he gets it.
And then?
Meet me at 9 o'clock tonight at the British Museum.
Well, I must say, Holmes, that as long as we had to come back to this Chamber of Horrors, I'm glad that you insisted on a decent amount of illumination.
Since we won't be concealing ourselves this evening, Watson, I asked Professor Halliday to leave the Egyptian gallery fully lighted. Now, you sit here, Watson.
Well, as long as none of the professors are about, Holmes, I don't suppose the museum will be shaken to its foundations if I smoke the pipe. Ah. Huh, that's better.
Good evening, Lord Cranwood.
Good evening. Lady Cranwood?
Mr. Holmes, Dr. Watson.
Good evening.
Well, I fail to see what purpose will be served by a reenactment of my cousin's tragic death, but I'm willing to do anything within my power that will offer any hope.
I insist on coming with Oliver, Mr. Holmes. I'm afraid every moment I'm away from him.
And now, Lord Cranwood, let us try in every way to duplicate your cousin's actions of 2 nights ago. I have here his briefcase, and I'd like you to enter through those doors, carrying the briefcase in your left hand and humming a tune.
All right. Ready?
All right, go ahead. Now, put the briefcase down on this table. Take off your hat and coat and put them on the table.
Any particular place you want them?
Oh, just place them on the table as your cousin did. Now, open the briefcase.
Ouch. I thought
What were you about to say?
Nothing.
You were about to say, Lord Cranwood, that you thought the ingenious adaptation of the Borgia's poison needle had been removed from its mount in the briefcase lock.
What on earth are you talking about?
I found that fiendishly clever mechanism in your study this afternoon.
Holmes, what do you mean?
I mean that this briefcase was fitted with a poisoned needle, which was removed after Derek's death.
Oh, no.
And which I replaced when I found it at your house this afternoon.
How horrible, how utterly vile.
I also found some of the poison, Lord Cranwood. And I greatly fear that when I remounted the needle in the briefcase after my experiments, some of the venom may have remained on it.
What, Neville?
Bluff, Holmes. Sheer bluff. You wouldn't dare.
If you think I'm bluffing, Lord Cranwood, why is your face going so pale? You're clutching your arm with your other hand. Why?
Fiend, it was poison.
Oh, darling.
My arm's swelling. It's going numb. There's no feeling left in my hand.
No, Oliver. Mr. Holmes must be mad.
Must you, Holmes? You've killed me. All right, I did it. I killed the others, but you'll never hang me.
Oliver!
All right, Lestrade. There's your confession.
It's a confession, all right, Mr. Holmes, but all you've given us is the corpse of a murderer.
He's dead. You've killed him.
Not a bit of it. He's only collapsed from fear.
Holmes, the pain in his arm, the symptoms.
Merely a harmless though painful solution which I placed on the poison needle.
Oh.
Catch her, Watson. She's fainting.
That Oliver's a fiend, Holmes, an absolute fiend.
Oh, unquestionably. But you must admit that his hiring us was an ingenious attempt at a novel method of removing all possible suspicion from himself. And now he'll pay the penalty for murdering at least 2 men.
A good thing, too, though I'm sure I don't know how you ever found out about the briefcase.
Why, you gave me the clue, Watson. You yourself.
I did?
Back in Baker Street when you were talking about the second death. You mentioned that we had seen Lord Cranwood enter the room. Open his briefcase.
Well, we did.
Exactly. But until you mentioned it, the significant fact had escaped me that the only object common to both deaths and handled by both men was the briefcase.
Good gracious me. Well, that solves the mystery of the ancient Egyptian curse.
Does it, Watson? Have you forgotten the 3 who died previously under such strange circumstances after they had opened Harshapi's temple?
You don't mean that you really believe in that stupid curse?
Those 3 deaths have still not been explained, and I doubt that they ever will be. There are powers, Watson, higher powers, of which we poor humans still know nothing.
Ladies, the poet who said a woman's hair was her crowning glory certainly knew what he was talking about. That's why you ladies should take the very best care of your hair, especially in shampooing.
I'm glad you brought that point up, Mr. Bell, because many popular shampoos have a tendency to dry the hair.
Well, here's one shampoo that will never dry the hair, never under any circumstances, and it's Kreml shampoo.
Yes, Kreml shampoo is simply wonderful. It actually glamour bathes each tiny strand of hair so that it fairly radiates natural, dazzling highlights. It leaves the hair simply gleaming with natural, glossy luster. And what's more, your hair stays this way for days.
Kreml shampoo is not a soapless shampoo. It's not a cream shampoo. It's entirely different.
Kreml shampoo never hurts the texture of your hair. You can use it as often as you wish, over a long period of time, and it'll never dry your hair. In fact, it has a beneficial built-in oil base, which actually helps keep the hair from becoming dry or brittle.
Remember, ladies, that beautiful Powers models wash their hair with Kreml shampoo. They claim no other shampoo leaves their hair more shining bright, yet never dries the hair. Why not try it? Kreml, Kreml shampoo. Now, Dr. Watson, what about next week?
Well, next week I think I'll tell you a story about the strange and ferocious behavior of Professor Presby's dog. And the even stranger behavior of the professor himself. I call it The Adventure of the Creeping Man.
Tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure was suggested by an incident in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's story, A Study in Scarlet. Nigel Bruce appeared by permission of California Pictures. Tonight, the part of Sherlock Holmes was played by Mr. Ben Wright. The Sherlock Holmes series is produced by Tom McKnight, with original music composed and conducted by Alex Steinert. This is Joseph Bell speaking for Kreml Hair Tonic and Kreml Shampoo, and inviting you to be with us next week at this same time, when Dr. Watson will tell us about the adventure of the creeping man. This is ABC, the American Broadcasting Company.
Welcome back. Well, this was a different Holmes voice. In some way, that may be a better strategy. When you listen to Conway, and you also listen to Alfred Shirley, who followed Conway in the role of Holmes, there's almost a sense in which you get the feeling that these guys are trying to imitate Basil Rathbone. And it'll be interesting to hear when we get to Wright's episode of Sherlock Holmes, and maybe there'll be more by then, but there's only one of the Ben Wright Sherlock Holmes episodes in circulation. If there was any change in this, or if he stuck to providing an original characterization. Well, now we turn to listener feedback and comments. Bill says, hey Adam, just wanted to chime in with my opinion of the best of your detective shows. My favorite is Sherlock Holmes, followed by Nero Wolfe. The others about equal to me. I've been listening to your other OTR podcast almost since the beginning and enjoy them as well. I usually enjoy listening to your pre- and post-show comments as well. I think Dragnet is my overall favorite, though. Keep up the good work, Bill. Well, thanks so much, Bill. Appreciate your comments. We will be back tomorrow with yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Remember, coming up next week, Ideal and Crime on Monday. And then, of course, on Thursday, another episode of Sherlock Holmes. This time, Tom Conway will be back. Well, before we get started with today's episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, I want to encourage you, as you make your travel plans, wherever you're planning on flying, remember this name, Johnny Dollar Air. That's JohnnyDollarAir.com, which is a Priceline. And if you go to JohnnyDollarAir.com, you can name your own price on hotels, rental cars, airline tickets, and even more. Or you can choose from some great published rates, and your purchase helps to support the great detectives of old-time radio. So remember, go to JohnnyDollarAir.com first when you're making your travel plans. Well, we're going to get into today's episode. This one is called The George Farmer Matter.
From Hollywood, it's time now for Edmund O'Brien as...
Johnny Dollar.
Mitchell Dollar.
Oh, swell.
Take some warm milk. You'll be asleep in an hour.
I'm sorry to wake you up, but this is important.
Okay.
How fast can you get to New York?
Pretty fast. If you let me get out of bed and slip on some clothes, I might make it in a couple of hours.
Well, it's 5:30. Get to the New York office by the time it opens.
Unless I get a 40-mile tailwind, you're going to be an awful liar. What's this all about?
Double indemnity. A man named Farmer burned to death. He has a wife. She gets $100,000 unless...
She likes fires. Okay. I'll get out of bed.
Edmund O'Brien in another adventure of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to Home Office Great Eastern Life Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. The following is an accounting of expenditures during my investigation of the George Farmer matter. Expense account item 1, $5.80 for gas and a cup of coffee between Hartford and your New York office.
Oh, come in, Mr. Dollar. Mr. Mitchell called me this morning, 5 o'clock, said you'd be here.
He called me at 5:30.
He must have been very sure you'd take the job.
He's familiar with my bank account.
Well, here are the briefs on the case. Mr. Farmer was on his vacation in the Catskills, a place called the Sportsman's Retreat.
Uh-huh. This is the correct address on the wife?
Yes. Oh, excuse me. Yes? Who? Oh, put him on. Yes, hello, Dr. Evans. Yes. Farmer? George Farmer? Yes, that's right. Our investigator's here now. All right, I'll have him come right over. Certainly. This is Dr. William Evans, one of our insurance doctors. He says he has some information on the Farmer case.
Oh?
He was the one that okayed Farmer for the policy. He's in the Equitable building. You better go on over. He says it's rather important.
Expense account item 2, $1 for cab fare and tip to the Equitable building. You may ask why I didn't use my car, in which case I may ask if you've ever been absurd enough to wheel your own car through early morning New York traffic. As my cab pulled up at the entrance of the Equitable building, I spotted a large crowd, several police cars, and an ambulance.
All right, just keep it back. Okay, you. Where do you think you're going?
What happened?
Some guy jumped 8 floors.
A Dr. Evans?
I don't know. What makes you think it was this doctor?
I haven't had an easy case in 2 years. What did you bet? His name's Evans.
Hey, Jake, any identification?
Yeah. Some doctor works the building. Name's Evans.
Be glad you're not a betting man, Sergeant.
Wait just a minute, Joe.
Sure.
Hey, Jake, come here. What is it? This guy knew who the guy was who jumped. Yeah? Knew who it was before he ever saw him. Didn't even know the guy had jumped till I told him. And he just up and bet me it was this Dr. Evans.
What's your name? Johnny Dollar.
I think you better come up and see a lieutenant.
I think I better, too. Jake followed me into the building and took me up to the 8th floor where I met Lieutenant William Briggs, a nice guy who worked for homicide and had done me a few favors in the past.
Hi, Dollar.
Hello, Bill.
You know this guy, Lieutenant?
Yeah, why? Where'd you find him?
He knew the guy who jumped.
I made a guess. Evans called my office on an insurance matter. Who pushed him?
What makes you think he was pushed?
Why call me, then take an 8-floor dive?
I don't know. You got any ideas?
Anybody see him jump?
A couple of people. They came out of the window feet first. They didn't see anybody give him a hand.
Well, let me know if you find anybody who might have, huh? I'd appreciate the information.
I'd appreciate some, too.
Expense account item 3, $1.50 for another cab to the home of Mrs. George Farmer. On the way over, I tried to put the first pieces together. A man named Farmer burned to death. A doctor named Evans had examined him and had some information. Evans winds up dead on the sidewalk. Answer, maybe Mrs. Farmer had it.
Come in, Mr. Dollar.
Thank you.
It's going to be another hot day. I think everybody should have air conditioning, don't you?
Definitely.
Just make yourself comfortable. Can I get you something cold?
Oh, no, thank you. I'd like to ask you some questions, Mrs. Farmer.
About my husband's death?
Yes.
I've already talked to Mr. Arthur from your office, and I've told the police everything I know.
Do you know a Dr. Evans?
Dr. Evans? No, I don't know any Dr. Evans.
Your husband never mentioned him.
No. What's he got to do with my husband?
He examined him for his policy. Do you know who sold your husband his policy?
I thought you were from the company.
Late hunch. Thought you might save me the trouble of checking.
No, I don't remember who sold him the policy.
All right, Mrs. Palmer. Thank you very much.
Is that all?
Yes, Mrs. Palmer. That's all for now. Expense account item 4, $1.15 for another cab back to the offices of Great East Assurance, where I looked up the name of the agent who sold Palmer his policy. He was Martin Ames, and he lived on the east side. Item 5, 10 cents by subway to the east side. Not conscience-stricken, just tired of cabs.
Yes, what is it?
I'm looking for Martin Ames. Hey, take it easy. What's wrong?
I'm Mrs. Ames. I was just on my way to the hospital. Martin's been in an automobile accident.
Expense account item 6, $8 for a cab. Fast and necessary. $3 for the necessary, $5 for the tip to make it fast.
Nurse?
Yes?
I'm Mrs. Ames. I was told my husband...
Oh, yes, Mrs. Ames, if you'll just have a seat.
Who's in charge of the case?
Dr. Gerson, I'll call him.
But I want to see my husband. Can't I see him?
You'll have to see Dr. Gerson first.
But I want to know how serious it is. I should be with my husband if it's serious.
If you'll just be patient for a moment, I'll get Dr. Tully.
Come on, Mrs. Ames. Let's sit down over here. Come on. Now, just try and take it easy. Everything is going to be all right, believe me.
Dr. Gerson, third floor reception. Dr. Gerson, third floor reception, please.
Hello, darling. Hello, Bill.
Dr. Gerson.
No, this is Lieutenant Briggs, Mrs. Ames.
Police officer.
Just a friend.
Nothing about my husband.
No, Dr. Gerson's the man you want to see.
Can I talk with you, darling?
Yeah, sure. You'll excuse me, Mrs. Ames?
Of course.
You'll be all right?
I'll be all right.
Okay, Lieutenant.
This is far enough.
About her husband?
Yeah. Died 5 minutes ago.
Accident?
No, hit and run. Before he died, he told us a car ran him off the road. He went down a 20-foot embankment and right into a cement retaining wall. Wall stopped him from going any further, but it broke his neck.
Any lead on the other car?
Lonely stretch of road. No one else saw it, and it happened too fast for Ames to see much. One of your company salesmen, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, there's Dr. Gerson.
I don't envy him. Come on, Briggs. This is turning into a rotten mess.
Yes? Oh.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Palmer. This is Lieutenant Briggs.
More questions?
Afraid so.
Come in. Sit down.
Thank you.
Mrs. Farmer, 2 men have been killed today. Both of them knew your husband.
What are you getting at, Lieutenant?
I'm not sure. Where were you at the time of your husband's death?
Right here. Right in this apartment.
Why didn't you go with him to the Catskills?
Because I didn't feel like it this year. He's been going to Catskills every year for the past 15 years, and I was getting tired of it. Are you trying to imply that my husband's death was not an accident?
We're just trying to find out why 2 men were killed.
What have these 2 men got to do with my husband? Who are they?
One was the doctor I mentioned this morning.
I told you I never heard of him.
The other was the insurance man who sold your husband his policy.
I don't know anything about him. I never met him.
Your husband started the fire by smoking in bed and then falling asleep.
I guess so. How would I know?
Was he in the habit of doing that?
We've done it once or twice over a period of 15 years. Mr. Dollar, it seems to me your company is trying its best to get out of paying the money that's due to me.
We're always allowed a certain time for an investigation.
A representative from your company went up to the lodge and made an investigation. What more do you want?
You were here in town at the time of your husband's death?
Yes, and I can prove it. Now, if you have any further questions, I suggest you take them up with my attorney. I'm sick and tired of this whole thing. You've had absolutely no consideration for me. My husband is dead, and you persist in foolish, tiring questions. Now, please leave. I can't stand much more.
All right, Mrs. Palmer.
Don't bother showing us to the door.
I'm entitled to that money, Mr. Dollar. I hope it won't be necessary to take legal action.
Oh,
Want to take a run up to Sportsman's Retreat, Lieutenant? Why? I'm just interested in knowing how Mrs. Farmer knew one of our investigators had already been up there.
We will return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar, in just a moment. A brilliant orchestra leader and a rising young singing star will be found at CBS, the Star's Address, starting tomorrow. Guy Lombardo and his famous orchestra are taking the place of Jack Benny, and Mario Lanza, the sensational tenor of records and films, will be heard on most of these same stations in place of Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy. Be listening for their programs every Sunday, won't you? Now, with our star Edmund O'Brien, we return you to the second act of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Briggs and I climbed into the squad car and started the long drive to the Catskills. Around 7 in the morning, we turned off the main highway and onto a dirt road. A sign reading Sportsman's Retreat 2 miles pointed the way, and 20 minutes later, we were pulling up in front of the main lodge.
I got a stiff neck.
Man coming out of the lodge.
Good morning. Well, I suppose you could... Oh, police car.
Yeah, I'm Lieutenant Briggs. This is Mr. Dollar.
Oh, Mr. Well, howdy. You up here about Mr. Farmer's death?
Yeah, unofficially. You run the place?
Well, yes, I'm the foreman. Name's Pop Sloan. Everybody just calls me Pop.
We thought we'd stay a while, Pop. Can you put us up?
Why, sure. How long you figure on being around?
Not long.
Come on in. Come in. Breakfast was an hour ago. If you're hungry, I can have the cook rustle up some old Chinese bacon and eggs. Anything.
Oh, sounds good. Any people staying here, Pop?
Oh, about 14. 14. The same crowd comes up every year. It's sort of a club, you might call it.
How many years did George Farmer come up?
Oh, about the last, 15 years, I guess.
Who owns the place?
Mr. Phillips. He ain't here now. He phoned and said he'd be in sometime this afternoon. Say, how come you fellas are interested in Mr. Farmer's death? We had the sheriff investigate. Some insurance fellow was up here for 3 days. You're a little late, ain't you?
Well, there are a few things we haven't cleared up, Pop.
Sure appreciate some help.
Well, yeah, I'll give you all the help I can. I'll go get some breakfast for you, and then we can gabble.
Pop went back to the kitchen, and we relaxed in a couple of big leather chairs in front of a large window that looked out on a row of cabins.
That last cabin must have been Farmer's.
Yeah, nothing much left of it.
Beautiful up here, isn't it, Johnny? Look at those trees with the sun shining through them.
Lieutenant.
Yeah?
Your soul is showing. It was beautiful, all right. The cabin stood in a clearing, fronted by well-kept paths and backed by tall trees. Pop came in with enough bacon and eggs to feed a platoon of tapeworms, and we talked.
Hey, where is everybody, Pop?
Oh, out fishing. Get up about 4:30 around here.
Many of the men bring their wives?
Bring their wives? Well, some of them. The farmer used to bring his up every year. He was the most fine-looking woman, Mrs. Farmer. Didn't come up this year, though. Too bad, too.
Oh, really? Why?
Why, might have saved him. Maybe if she'd have been here, she might have caught him with a cigarette before he went to sleep.
Well, who discovered the fire?
Who did? Well, we all saw it, but it was too late. By the time we got there, the whole place was burning. By the time we got the hoses going, there wasn't much left.
You say you all saw it? Where were you?
Where was we? Why, we was up the Willow Peak cooking out. It's about 3 miles from camp. See it right from here. You see it, that tall peak there to the left. To the left, there those trees.
Yeah. How come Farmer didn't go along?
Oh, I don't know. He never went on many hikes. He had trouble with his legs.
Anyone stay here in the camp besides Farmer?
No. Everybody was up at Willow Peak.
Who examined the body?
Well, Doc Holmes from Evanston come up and looked at the body.
Where is Evanston?
Well, Evanston is about 50 miles east. But if you want to talk to the doc, you'll have to wait until he comes in from fishing.
He's up here now.
Yeah, he come up last night. He's going to stay awake with the patient. Huh? Why, good morning, Mr. Phillips. Didn't you expect you this afternoon? This is Mr. Phillips, the owner.
How are you?
Hello. Some more police fellows, Mr. Phillips.
Oh, about Mr. Thomas there? Johnny Dollar. Yeah, I'm an insurance investigator. This is Lieutenant Briggs. He's the policeman.
Why, I thought you both...
I've got some
bags in the car, Pop. Would you get them, please? Would you get them? Well, yeah, sure.
We just wanted to ask a couple of questions, Mr. Phillips.
I thought the authorities were satisfied.
Where were you when the accident occurred, Mr. Phillips?
Well, I was on my way here from the city. I arrived about an hour later.
You live in the city?
I have a house there. I divide my time between there and the lot.
Now, tell us something about Farmer, Mr. Phillips. What kind of a man was he?
You fellas want any more breakfast?
No, thanks, Pop. Go ahead, Mr. Phillips.
Well, there really isn't much to tell. Farmer was a nice sort of guy, quiet.
Do you have any trouble with him smoking in bed before?
Several times. Nearly started a fire 2 years ago.
Wouldn't that make you watch him a little more closely?
His wife came up with him every year, but this one, she was usually near enough to prevent any trouble. Isn't your company satisfied, Mr. Dollar?
Routine. How long did Farmer usually stay here?
Oh, a week, 10 days. However long his vacation lasted.
He was in the advertising business, wasn't he?
I believe so.
How much did it cost him to come up here every year?
Oh, anywhere from $200 to $300. He was tight as the devil, known for it. This was the only luxury he allowed himself. He'd tell everyone he'd save all year just to come up here and relax for a week.
Lieutenant, Mr. Dollar, here comes Doc Holmes. What's the kind of limit?
You interested in talking to the doctor?
Yeah, Pop tells us he was the one who examined the body.
What did you get, Doc?
Hi, Pop. Got my limit.
Well, good for you. Come on over here. Couple of fellas want to talk to you.
Well, how are you, Phil? Pop said you weren't due in till this afternoon.
I'm fine, Doc. This is Lieutenant Briggs and Mr. Dollar.
How are you, Doctor?
Police?
Yeah, well, this is insurance investigator. I want to ask you a few questions. Clear up a few things about George Farmer getting burned here.
All right. Thanks, Pop.
What happened? Hey,
How about having a cook clean up those fish, Pop?
The fish? Well, all right, sure.
I don't think I could tell you much more than I've already told the sheriff.
Did you know George Farmer prior to his death?
Yes. Over a period of 10 years.
Did you identify the body?
Well, not at first. It was pretty badly burned.
Not at first. Well, how were you able to identify it later?
Well, when they told me that George had a broken wrist, I found a broken section of bone and identified it.
Broken wrist?
Yes, Mr. Dollar. When George arrived, his lower arm was in a cast. He told us that he'd broken his wrist the week before.
What day did he arrive?
Tuesday of last week.
Which wrist was broken?
The right one.
Would you say he could move his fingers well enough to write?
Depends on how recent the accident.
What are you getting at, Dollar? Do either of you know where Farmer had his wrist treated?
No.
Dollar, would you mind letting me know? Briggs, can you call the precinct and have a man check and find out where Farmer had that wrist treated?
Sure, but I don't see why.
George Farmer had to sign that insurance policy, didn't he?
Well, he could have done it with his left hand.
Go find out when he broke that wrist. And I think I can show you that George Farmer was murdered.
Murdered?
We all waited while Briggs put in a call to his precinct and sent a man out to check on where George Farmer had his wrist treated. Around noon, the call came in.
George Farmer broke his wrist on the 26th of last month.
That tears it.
Was treated at the Olive Hospital.
3 weeks ago.
Stayed one night at the hospital and went home.
What date did he arrive here, Mr. Phillips?
About the 4th.
2 weeks after the accident. He died on the 11th.
That's right. Been here about a week.
Dollar, would you mind telling me just what you're driving at?
The insurance policy went into effect the 22nd of last month. The first claim on George Farmer's policy was the double indemnity clause, not an accident claim for a broken wrist. Come on, Briggs. Let's go back to town. Talk to Mrs. Farmer.
All right, what is it this time?
We'd better talk about it inside.
I promise you, Mr. Dollar, if you continue...
We're coming in.
Why? Well, all right.
We think your husband was murdered.
Murdered? That's ridiculous.
We feel that you were an accomplice, Mrs. Farmer.
Are you serious?
Very. We just had the lab make a check on the insurance policy. The signature and the fingerprints were from the right hand.
Of course they were.
So your husband didn't have a broken wrist at the time?
No, we did that sometime later.
Would you swear it's his signature on the policy?
Of course it's his signature. I went to the doctor with him.
I thought you said you didn't know Dr. Evans.
I don't.
He was the insurance doctor.
Well, I'd never seen him before or since. How could you expect me to remember
Your
him?
husband didn't turn in a claim for his broken wrist?
That was his business, wasn't it?
Don't you think it's rather strange to take out an accident policy and not turn in a claim on your first accident?
I don't know. I didn't bother with my husband's affairs.
Is this your husband's driver's license?
Yes. Where did you get that?
Motor vehicle department.
The signature on his license is not the same as the one on the insurance policy.
What do you mean?
He means that the signature on the policy is a very clever forgery. Who forged it, Mrs. Farmer?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Who went to that doctor's office representing your husband?
No one. Why in the world would anyone do that? Why would someone represent my husband?
For a $100,000 insurance claim.
That's awful. Get out of here. That's not true. I'll sue you for saying that.
Your husband wouldn't take out a large policy on himself, so with someone's help, you took one out for him and planned his death.
Who was in on it with you? Who killed your husband up at the lodge?
Get out! Get out!
It had to be someone at the lodge who knew what cabin he was in.
No!
The insurance salesman and the doctor were both killed because they could identify the man who took out the policy as not being your husband.
No!
Your husband was going to take this trip, so you planned his death and stayed home for an alibi.
A man killed the doctor and the insurance agent. Someone strong enough to run a car off the road and lift an unconscious man out of a window feet first.
Who killed him, Mrs. Farmer?
I did.
Phil!
Good evening, Mr. Phillips.
Why did you come out? Why didn't you stay in the other room?
They'd have worn you down sooner or later. The car's in the back. Hurry up.
You did some fast driving.
Left the lodge right after you did. Go on, Lorna.
All right.
Stay right where you are, Mrs.
I
Farmer.
don't think you're in any position to be giving orders, Lieutenant.
Sure he is. We expected you. Told you where we were going, gave you enough time to get here.
And what are you going to do about it?
Take you.
Phil!
Forgetting my gun.
You're forgetting ours. Think you can shoot both of us before we get them out?
I can try.
Then try.
Phil, no!
Get out of the way!
Dollar?
Okay. Just a little scared.
Girl's hit. Phillips is pretty dead.
Mrs. Farmer?
Yeah.
I'll get an ambulance.
You want to tell me about it?
Oh, all right. Don't make any difference now.
Phillips killed your husband and the other two men?
Yeah. We fell in love 3 summers ago. But he planned it. The whole thing was his idea.
Sure, I know. The state is pretty narrow-minded about those things, honey. A guy like that gets ideas and gets dead for it. If you like his ideas, you just have to get into some kind of trouble along the way. Expense account item 6, $11. Dinner for 2. The good Lieutenant Briggs deserved all the stroganoff he ate. Item 7, $5.10 for gas back to Hartford. Expense account total, $33.65. Remarks? Mrs. Farmer will probably get second degree for complicity. Great Eastern can cancel payment in accordance with the specifications set forth in said policy. Additional item, 12 hours good solid sleep for yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, stars Edmund O'Brien in the title role and was written by Blake Edwards with music by Wilbur Hatch. Edmund O'Brien can soon be seen in the Paramount Pictures production, Warpath. Featured in tonight's cast were Hy Averback, John McIntyre, Herb Butterfield, Harry Lang, Jeanette Nolan, and Virginia Gregg. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, is produced and directed by Jaime Del Valle. This is Dick Cutting inviting you to join us next week at this time when Edmund O'Brien returns as...
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
It's the case of the uninvited guest that will bring you true police adventures on Gangbusters this evening. Your narrator will be San Francisco's police chief. Gangbusters is heard every Saturday on most of these same CBS stations. Stay tuned now for 5 minutes of the latest news, which follows immediately over most of these same CBS stations. This is CBS, where you meet adventure with Charlie Wilde. Sunday is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Welcome back. This was a fantastic episode, I thought. I like the mystery, the setup, and the way they really drew you into the case. That was great. But I also like the way they use music and narration to set the tone for those scenes out at the campground. Whereas I was listening to that, it became pretty easy to imagine being at that campground, surrounded by the beauty of nature and looking into this killing. The only thing I found unbelievable about it is that they charged the wife with second-degree murder. Now, if you plan to kill your husband and establish an alibi for yourself, that's first-degree murder. But they're writers, not lawyers. And, of course, young Blake Edwards contributed to the script. Well, we do have comments. I want to acknowledge a comment from Dina. I won't read the specifics because it was about an episode 152, which was back in Jeff Regan. But she says, Adam, keep up the wonderful work. I love your joyful personality before and after such dark stories. Well, thanks so much. And Ian asked a fun question. I may be half a series behind you, but managed to listen to more episodes a week than you produce in an attempt to eventually reach present day. I did that with Dragnet and fell behind again as I enjoy the mix of detectives you offer on this great detective podcast. Each series offers something a little different, and I enjoy the informed commentary and feel that your personality breathes life into what otherwise would be just a string of episodes. I did want to ask, though, do you listen to other non-detective old-time radio, or is this the only genre that appeals to you? Well, I love the detective genre, but I listen to a lot of comedy and music from the era, something I've gotten into in the past year. Abbott and Costello, Lum and Abner, Bob Hope, these guys, absolutely hilarious. Love some of the music. Jubilee, Eddie Condon's jazz concert, Bell Telephone Hour. Really does help my day to go faster. The one disadvantage of like a detective show is I get so involved in the plot, I can't really multitask that well. One of my favorites, I think, is The Big Show, which features a lot of fantastic singers, musicians, and talent. So I listen to quite a bit. Detectives, though, continues to be my favorite. Speaking of detective radio shows, and thanks for the email from Melbourne, Australia, I wanted to let you know we've made up our mind about a couple other series. One is The Misadventures of Cy and Elmer. This was a serial series from the 1930s about two country bumpkins that took up being a detective. Some have described it as a detective story meets Lum and Abner, a radio show. Well, I listened to it and I decided against using it. Mysteries weren't that good, and I don't think the two actors playing Cy and Elmer had that same chemistry as the Lum and Abner actors either. Nowhere close. By the time I got to the end of it, I was kind of glad to be through with it. The other series is Dick Tracy. Now, I suppose you could say Dick Tracy was a juvenile targeted series, but from the period where juvenile targeted series could also include the bad guys going to the electric chair. It was actually quite a bit of fun. The Dick Tracy serials, the 15-minute serials, there's not enough to... they're all partials, but there were some 30-minute episodes for a few months in 1946, and a couple of those have survived. So I've added Dick Tracy to the list of shows that we'll play someday. If you've looked at our big list of detective shows, it is really big. And we're not helping by adding other shows to the list, but it's something we'll take into consideration down the road. It was pretty fun. For a couple of weeks of good adventure. Well, that will do it for now. We will be back on Monday with I Deal in Crime with William Gargan. And then next Friday, another episode of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. If you've got a comment in the meanwhile, send it to box13 at greatdetectives.net. Follow us over on Twitter at Radio Detectives. And become one of our friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Radio Detectives. But from Boise, Idaho, this is your host, Adam Graham, signing off.